You didn't even know that American manufacturing has been hemorrhaged. You asked me why it was even a bad thing. You have literally no spot at this table. Like, the fact that you're even in this, you're below this.
You're scared of me because you don't actually understand any economics. It's the issue. I can tell you why it's not necessarily good to bring American manufacturing back. I can also tell you manufacturing productivity has gone up a lot, so U.S. manufacturing output has actually increased, although manufacturing employment has decreased. There's an opportunity cost to everything.
I think we're hurting enough already. Don't add to our pain right now. Don't raise inflation even more, right? Because we can look at the 2018 tariffs, for example. Inflation rose because of the 2018 tariffs.
Like, right now, they have no economic incentive to start dealing with this border situation. What's their economic incentive? We're the ones dealing with the ones crossing into our country. They're coming into our country, right?
If a company moves their production to Mexico or whatever, like how, and we slap it 100% tariff on them, how is that a net benefit to the U.S.?
The companies will lose money if they go to Mexico.
I don't dispute tariffs can lead to increased domestic output, but that domestic output is a waste because you're using domestic resources to produce something that could have been imported for cheaper, while those same domestic resources could have been used to produce other things. And I also think tariffs harm exports as well. And if Pentuple does not know enough about economics to actually engage in this conversation, that's why he's scared. He is scared of a 19-year-old online suitor expert who has never had a girlfriend. That is who he's running from, okay? If you want to see more content like this, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing. It really helps with the algorithm. And make sure to check out the Discord and other social links in the description.
Yes, we're going to be getting rocking and rolling right now. We're talking about the tariffs tonight. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they stupidity? Are they insanity? Are they a stroke of genius? This is also, as of breaking news today, Trudeau has flown in to discuss things with Trump days after Trump threatened him with a 25% tariff hike. And that's also comes on the heels of a historic meeting and call with President Sheinbaum, saying basically that the tariffs have inspired her to stop people at the southern border, paraphrased by Trump. We're going to get into all this and more tonight. We'll start off with everybody give your intro, who you are, and tell us what your thoughts are. Average debate enjoyer, you go ahead and kick it off here.
All right, my name's Tyler. I'm here to defend tariffs. So after the first Congress did on July 4th, the birthday of our damn country, the first thing they did after getting sworn in was pass a tariff. So you're going to sit here and tell me that tariffs lead to bad economy. I'm looking at America right now. It looks pretty damn good. Next, we're going to talk about Trump's tariff. Now, Trump says a lot of things. I think some of them aren't going to happen. Others are pie in the sky. But we could take a look at his first administration, see how he used tariffs, what he did, and how it was successful. And pretty much front minus China.
All right, thank you so much. Nonfon, why don't you take us off?
Yeah, I'm here to defend free trade. Free trade is almost always a net benefit to the United States, even regardless of what other countries do. Tariffs fail to do most things that people think they do, like protect jobs. They're just overall not good.
All right, thank you so much. Pentuple.
I'm Pentuple. Let's go. Go tariffs. Go Trump. He's going to implement them smartly. He's not just going to throw a dart at a dartboard. It's going to be done smart. They're on the table. It's a way that every country deals with foreign trade. Some are implemented to completely kick them out the market so that we can revive American manufacturing. Some of it's just to open the market so we can start competing again. This is all done intelligently and not with a blindfold. So I expect Trump to use them effectively for American long-term economic success. Let's go. Let's go, tariffs. Woo!
Thank you so much. And Wick, we actually get to have you compete instead of moderate for once. How you doing?
You'll come to regret this. You will rue the day. Okay, so no, I'm here to defend free trade, both as a concept and in practice. I think that free trade has benefits both economically and it's a moral good. Adam Smith wrote Wealth of Nations, and that remains true even today in a lot of ways. What are the price of tariffs? Will they help the economy? We have countless examples from the 2002 tariff that Bush
on steel.
Imposed, right, on steel, from the 2012 tariff that Obama passed to the 2008 tariffs that Trump did. And in each case, we can track the data on this and recognize the cost the cost to people, and how businesses had to be literally bailed out from the Trump tariffs in 2018. We'll talk about that, right? The $28 billion he gave to the farming industry because his tariffs decimated them. We'll talk about it, right? And if we think that tariffs are going to be a good idea for the economy, you have to contend with the fact that economists don't see it this way. It has traditionally not worked. Free trade is the reason that you can sit here today talking and put food on your Thanksgiving table. Thank you, free trade. I want you, and by the end of tonight, you will all thank free trade as well. That's my argument. And here we are.
Well, what makes it against free trade is aren't a lot of these tariffs in response to countries that have tariffs on our, like cars, for example? Like we're not selling cars because they have a 100% tariff on us. Why aren't you going over there and complaining about their abandonment of free trade? Oh God!
They will pay the price for their own tariffs, right?
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
have studies showing how both the European Union and China, they have decimated their own economies during this trade war, right? It has hurt them more than it has hurt us.
Yeah, the case for free trade is a unilateral one, regardless of what other countries do. I think is a net benefit to us to engage in free trade.
Yeah, I think these countries need our markets more than we need their products. And the whole point is like the opening of the market for American companies to compete when manufacturing overseas is extremely cheap. I mean, there's other ways to approach this. You could sanction countries that allow slave labor, that allow production to be this cheap because of that. But I think that you could just implement tariffs. That's probably a better approach. Maybe you'll argue for sanctions. I don't know. But when you make this like free trade, as if we're not about free trade, a lot of these tariffs are responding to countries that have tariffs on us, and it's to get them to sit at the table. You guys are right. And a lot of these tariffs aren't going to be implemented, but a lot of them are strategic negotiation tactics that if they want to do nothing, we can implement them. And then it will bring them to the table.
So do you think tariffs
I think it's a
might bringing them to the table because famously, the 2002 tariffs that Bush said, after he did that, we've had no trouble with China, and China's been a good boy the entire time. What are you talking about? They bring it to the table? What are you talking about? Literally, we've tried tariffs to China
2002 tariff didn't
over and
work,
over again for over 20 years. It has not worked.
Well, let me ask you this. Tyler, go ahead. You wanted to get in there.
Yeah, so absolutely it has worked multiple times. So taking a look at what Trump did with Mexico when he got rid of NAFTA, was restructuring for the USMCA, slapped a 25% steel tariff on both of those countries, took the negotiations.
Why is there a child on your screen?
That's my niece.
Hi, niece.
She wants to learn. She wants to learn about tariffs.
Okay, I feel weird yelling at you now, though.
No. Don't worry about it. Also, so she's here. She's an adult. She wants to learn about tariffs like the big boys. So here she is.
You make her cry, Wick. She's pro-tariff. Don't make her cry.
So that all being said, as he was saying, sanctions work. There's all sorts of mechanisms. We have China manipulating their currency, practicing an intellectual theft of $300 billion a year, doing all kinds of shady things, costing us almost $1 trillion a year in losses from China specifically. We slapped these tariffs on not to say, oh, you got tariffs on us, though it was a good reason. It was because they were a bad actor, and this was a punishment. You can look at the economy and say, yeah, it might hit the economy a little bit.
Who did it punish? That's a good question. The 2018 tariffs specifically, let's talk about that. Who did it punish? Who bared the price? Who bared the brunt of the cost for those tariffs? Not so much China. Not so much China.
Did it by American. If you bought American steel, you didn't even notice the tariff.
But here's the thing.
That's not true.
Businesses, right, who import goods, the supply chains, right? When we talk about tariffs, we have to talk about supply chains because that's what tariffs affect. When a business wants to purchase a product or a resource that they use to make their product, basically, such as steel, such as washers, maybe a part, it could be any sort of thing, right? They will come in and they will pay a tax on that if they haven't actually gotten an exemption from the government. And we'll talk about how tariffs lead to corruption in the government, right? We talk about the swamp and draining that. Tariffs make that swamp even worse. And we can look at the tons of companies, right, who applied and received an exemption from the steel tariff from Trump in 2018. About almost half of them, right? We can talk about that, but let me finish here. But the cost comes to the consumer. I don't get bailed out. I didn't get any bailout, right, from the cost of the Trump's tariffs, but the corporations largely did.
Yeah, well,
okay, so can we clarify out something really quick? Are you, because you can look up examples of tariffs that we've implemented in the past that didn't work, but I see tariffs as a tool. And what we're talking about is whether Trump should use this tool. Are you using these examples to make the argument that tariffs never work or that they're never effective?
No, there can be
because
good
we can easily sit here and you could convince me about this 2018 tariff, this 2002 tariff, that it wasn't implemented correctly. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. You know, there's a lot of reasons for that. Maybe it was too high. Maybe it was too low. Maybe there was maybe it was a certain product that shouldn't have been tariffed this way. Like, we can hash that out, but what we're talking about in this debate is, should Trump have tariffs on the table? We're talking about China. We're talking about we're talking about Mexico. We're talking about Canada. We're talking about accomplishing economic goals and other goals, by the way, with fentanyl crossing the border by using tariffs. And so you're assuming that he's going to use them in an ineffective way. Your premise when you come here and say that tariffs should work.
Well, let me just ask directly. What is Trump's goal with his tariffs against Canada?
Well, as far as I'm aware, it's the same as with Mexico. It's to stop the trafficking of drugs and people over the border. They need to take care of the border and stop letting the border be open.
You think that Trump is trying to get Canada to stop importing people from their northern border?
I don't think there's no problem happening at the Canadian border. No, I don't think it's beyond fathomable that there's issues with drugs and people crossing the Canadian border as well as the Mexican border. You think it's only people from South America that would come here? I don't know. What do you mean?
Yeah, there was a report recently about Indians coming through. It was in a large number through the Canadian border now. I don't know if it's
the point is, do tariffs never work? Is that no matter how Trump implements them, that they're not going to work? Because I would make the argument, if Trump doesn't intelligently implement tariffs in these conversations, they're probably not going to work, and that would just not be using the tool correctly. But are we arguing about the tool? Do you think that it just never works? We should never use tariffs. It should be off the table. We have to find a different approach to accomplish these goals.
There are very niche instances where tariffs as a tool can be implemented. I'm not 100% against tariffs, but I'm 90% against tariffs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
a good example of a tariff historically that has actually had good effects was the 1964 the 1964 chicken tax, right? Which was about the auto industry and industries, things like that. It helped the Ford F-150 kind of become a really big thing. So yes, it can. Here's the thing about tariffs. There are winners and losers, right? It can help in certain instances with domestic production. But the problem becomes, right, is that it hurts us overall. It hurts the export industry especially. And if we want to export
in the long term,
yes, in the long term,
yeah. And I think tariffs have a track
record. What should we do with a country like
working.
Japan that puts a 100% tariff on our cars, and then they sell their cars in our country? How do you suppose we counter that? Doesn't it kind of make sense to say, look, if you're going to put a 100% tariff on our cars and make them basically unsellable in your country, we could do the same to you? You guys don't you think that would work? At least bringing them to the table.
I don't think that's a net benefit to the U.S. Given the fact that I don't think tariffs have a track record of working, I'm not okay with the major economic costs that
That's
they have.
your reasoning? All right, let's hear from the next one then. There's no reasoning.
Hold on. Let Nonfon finish.
No, because tariffs don't work. Okay.
Well, given Wick just laid out, they have a track record of not being particularly effective. I'm not okay with the potential of imposing a big economic cost in America just for some hypothetical benefit.
I mean,
gripping input.
Trump's tariffs, again, you guys are really focusing on what success is by economic success when he's clearly announcing the intent of many of these tariffs is for a negotiating chip for something that's not economic. He wants to pay for the border wall, stop immigration and drugs coming in from the southern border. And that's what the goal of the tariffs are on Mexico. He got on the phone with the president of Mexico. They had a very productive call. I could imagine U.S. troops even going into Mexico to battle the cartels after how they're talking about that call. So tariffs bring people to the table. As he was saying earlier, there is that fact. You're just arguing the economic.
Bro, I had a call with the president of Mexico too, and the president of Mexico was telling me how all was bullshit. Right? You can Trump says the call went well, I just don't believe
Trump hates the trade deficit in general. Trump has tweeted about hating the trade deficit before. It's not like just he's using this as a negotiating tactic. He doesn't like the trade deficit either.
You're 100% correct. Now, there's a bunch of different things Trump has promised with tariffs. If a country goes to a U.S.-based country, takes its production to Mexico, he wants to slap a 100% tariff on that country. That's something I could imagine Elizabeth Warren saying. That's completely retaliatory and it's taking manufacturing jobs out of the country. I can't imagine anybody that wants people to pay their fair share of taxes to be against that.
Elizabeth Warren
How's that a net
and
benefit?
Bernie Sanders are protectionists, and they're in the sense that they are protectionists, they are wrong, and we should oppose them.
You don't want them to pay their fair share of taxes? You want them to offshore jobs?
I just want to run through this example. So you're saying that, like, if
guys on Google, great.
If a company moves, it's.
Are we here to be on Google? I mean, it's just pointless. All right, go ahead and read Google.
I'm not reading Google. If a company moves their production to Mexico or whatever, like how, and we slap a 100% tariff on them, how is that a net benefit to the U.S.?
The companies will lose money if they go to Mexico. This factors into their profit margin.
Mm-hmm.
In their profit margin, if they say, wow, it's going to cost us a 100% tariff to sell this good here, it now loses us money to go to Mexico, even though we're taking advantage of cheap labor and lack of.
It's really simple. The reason they're going to Mexico is they can make their bottom line larger by manufacturing it cheaper. If you add a tariff, now they have to calculate that in. Now their bottom line is cheaper when they manufacture in the U.S. They come back here. You can manipulate these companies very easily by just changing the bottom line. Tariffs are like the easiest way to do that.
I don't dispute that. In a lot of cases,
well, I'm not arguing with you. We're arguing with Google or whatever you're Googling over there.
They just drop their jobs. They don't create new jobs. They just like, oh, this is not economically feasible. So no job gets created, no product gets created, and they simply scale back their production.
Well, even if they benefit from it, I still dispute that's a net benefit because there's a cost to exports, there's a cost to consumers through higher prices, there's a cost to productivity, there's a cost of real consumption possibilities. All these things are negative, so you have to account for it too.
So let me ask this. So there's an argument from the right that I've heard other righties make, is that tariffs are going to force domestic production. I guess we'll ask the lefties here first. Do you all think that there is anything true in that statement? Is it going to force domestic production? Is this a scenario where we'll see, an initial price increase and then it'll even out and we'll be stronger? Is that you don't see any possibility of something like that occurring? We'll start with Nonfon, and then we. I
don't dispute tariffs can lead to increased domestic output, but that domestic output is a waste because you're using domestic resources to produce something that could have been imported for cheaper, while those same domestic resources could have been used to produce other things. And I also think tariffs harm exports as well. And if you like exports, then you shouldn't support them too.
So here's the thing: there are winners to tariffs, right? In a lot of cases, it will have some benefit, but the problem with it is that the overall costs mean it's a negative for the economy in general, for the nation in general, for the consumer in general, from people in general. I'll give you an example. For example, the 2002 steel tariffs. Okay. There was some gain, some benefit that happened within the domestic steel production industry. The problem is we didn't have the workforce. We didn't have the industrial base and things like that to take advantage of it. And you have the exporters who consumed 10 times the amount of steel, right, that was produced domestically, that they had to pay the cost of that steel. Okay, because they couldn't get it from domestic things. It wasn't possible.
Well, there's possibly reasons for that. Maybe they're overregulated. There's other areas of the economy that absolutely affect this discussion. This is a super nuanced thing that I don't think like a Twitch panel is going to figure out, to be fair. But let's say I'm accepting what you're saying is true. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons that aren't tariffs don't work that caused that tariff to fail in its goal.
But tariffs don't fix any of those problems.
Well, here's what tariffs do. You either have to eat the cost, which means that we're collecting money from these companies, or they try to pass it off to consumers, which means that the market price that the customer's seeing is going up, which opens the market for American-made manufacturing of these products.
That's not what happens.
It opens the market.
That doesn't happen.
You can pull up this 2002 thing that you found, but I'm just saying this is like
they all think they're going to eat, but they all end up starving. Okay.
And even when that happens, I fail to see how it's a net benefit.
There's a domestic like blow up of production.
Well, you just can say it's not a net benefit.
Well,
you haven't substantiated that yet. You haven't read enough on Google yet. Keep doing your live research.
I told you. I think that.
Hold on. Let me jump in here because there's no other policy. Like, look at climate change. If you look at climate change, a carbon tax, anything related to climate change is going to make the cost of living of Americans go up. Anytime you go after gas and fuel, even just in rhetoric, it makes the cost of the barrel go up. It makes people stop investing less in the oil industry. But nobody's going to say, well, the cost of climate change is so high that we can't do it on the side of people that want climate change. There's people that want trade regulators, there's people that want Mexico to do certain things, countries to do certain things, and these tariffs are negotiating mechanisms being used to force these countries to the table and force their hand. The U.S. has the strongest economy.
No, hold on. He's actually right. Do you know who wants these tariffs? People who are in companies, who are corporations, who are in these industries, who can afford lobbyists to pay money, right, and to do a pay-for-play so that they can get exemptions while the mom and pop, the small business, the business that can't afford a lobbyist, can't afford to kind of like cozy up to these politicians, can't get. And so now you have a mom and pop company that has to pay the tariff while the Amazon, the big corporation, does not. This is what happened in 2018.
Why is mom and pop not subject to the same market forces that would motivate them to purchase domestically made products?
Because they don't
can't afford it. They don't have the connections.
The big company does
Every
not have
mom
to pay
and
the
pop shop
tariff.
doesn't have. Like, what are we
mom and pop
talking about? We're
does.
just like talking generically. What are we doing?
What are you even talking about?
Well, I'm just saying, like, there's no small businesses that are going to be like. I don't understand this. This is talking about the supply of goods, and I mean, even a lot of these larger businesses that we think of are owned by like franchisees and stuff like that. Like, this is domestic production is absolutely not just for like Amazon and Walmart. Like, this is going to affect the shops that you go to.
The big corporations, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, in the 2018 tariffs that were
You found 2002 and 2018 really quick.
Well,
But like
2018,
we have data 2018.
Right?
you guys went on Google today, and now we have the experts here.
A bunch of people, right, applied for tariffs, tariff exemptions, I should say, so that they didn't have to pay the tariff. Okay, so now if you have a 10% tariff on steel, for example, and imported steel, now Amazon doesn't have to pay that, and you, the person who didn't get the exemption, has to pay that, and you have to compete with Amazon, who didn't have to pay that tariff because they knew the guy in charge and was able to pay for it.
Yeah, I'm not pro-exemption.
Okay, but this is what happens in these tariff economies, right?
Well, yeah, but they're basically telling
lobbyists
a way that doesn't actually implement the tariff, especially with the largest people who are, say, Amazon, for this example. I don't support that. So that would be, like, for example, them implementing it in an unintelligent way, in my opinion. And I agree with you. Tariffs aren't just like, they work. Here you go. Just tariff. Fuck it. Here's a tariff. They have to be implemented strategically. If it's 10% versus when he says things like 100% or 1,000%. Once you get to those levels, the whole point is just like, we're kicking you out of our market. We're going to force American manufacturing for these products. For other products, you don't want to say we're only going to produce them in domestically, because we can't. So like, these things are implemented intelligently, and like, you're Googling like examples of tariffs not working, which is fine, and like, those are useful, but like, there's a million reasons that those could have not worked that aren't just automatically tariffs never work.
One.
Like I said, regulation. I don't know what this thing was with 2002 from steel, but maybe the steel industry was overregulated and didn't really allow American manufacturing to compete. That's just one example off the top of my head. There's probably thousands. And all I'm saying is we don't know the answer, because
I do know the answer, though. That's what I'm saying. I know the answer. I know what's happened. You know why I know? Because I researched the topic. I looked into it. I gathered data, and then I formed a conclusion, and I put that forth, and I'm arguing it tonight. The idea that
never
Googling, what a pussy! What are you talking about?
Our position is that tariffs never work.
Googling, getting information from sources. What a pussy move, I guess.
Hey, guys,
You're an online shooter expert like me.
I did not deny your information. I'm just saying you're going on Google and finding, this tariff didn't work, and now we're just assuming that tariffs never work because you found a tariff that didn't work.
Well, okay, let's go to
you on Google. People think that this is the Dunning-Kruger effect in real time.
Oh, let's go to Tyler.
I'm only that you brought up. The 2018 tariff that you brought up, it didn't work. The 2002 tariff didn't work. You're telling me it just didn't work because it was a tariff.
Give me a tariff that worked.
Hold on. All right, I'm taking control here. All right, Tyler, you want to get in here on this?
Okay, so a lot of these are secondary arguments. If you went to Wick and presented him with regulations that cause regulatory capture, create oligopolies in certain sectors of the economy, and said it was something that he was for politically, he would still be for that regulation. So these secondary arguments that, yes, there's downsides to everything we do. You're 100% right, but none of these things are going to stop you from enacting policies that you want. Again, climate change being the perfect example. regulatory
Hold
policy
on.
on
I
climate change.
reject your claim here. There are I believe in climate change, right? But there are policies that I think that are more harmful, especially short term, than climate change would be. So I'm like, you know what? This policy, even though it would tacitly help improve climate change for whatever reason, I'm against it because it would cause too much pain at the inset or at the outset or whatever the fuck, right? And so I would be against that. A lot of the stop oil people, I'm against all that shit, right? I'm against people who are saying don't frack. I'm against that.
Inflation
So you
Reduction
keep
Act
saying
is
these
why I
things,
specifically
and I'm
targeted
giving you
that.
examples of where what you were saying is simply not true, right?
But the Inflation Reduction Act, because we've argued about it in the past, that's specifically why I'm targeting you here, because you have defended the Inflation Reduction Act to me, and in a lot of ways, that does act as regulatory policy. I don't think you defended Kamala's EV ban that she co-endorsed, co-sponsored in the Senate.
I do not
Yeah,
endorse
I
the
don't know
Biden EV tariff.
The tailpipe thing, yeah. I think the only one you've ever defended to me was the Inflation Reduction Act. But still, even then, that would qualify. So a lot of these secondary arguments, yes, it is regulation in a way. Yes, it would come out of the pocket of the consumer if they purchase those foreign goods instead of just buy American. But like we're talking short term. Long term, we would see these American companies, American steel, be able to raise their ability to produce more. Like if you continue to give them your money, they might run out in the short term because we just put in tariffs in place. That's the growing pains of change. But in 10 years from now, their production output would be to the point where they could actually satiate all the people that they need to. The problem is there are long-term issues with tariffs, and it's hard to say, because Rick, you are bringing up a lot of the cons correctly. Long-term tariffs create a lax business that works hand in hand with the government. And as soon as those tariffs, which act as subsidies, go away, they're unable to compete on the world stage, even with companies that are countries that aren't manipulating their currency, that do actually have some workers' rights. But in terms of workers' rights and whatnot, if you want to force, like we did with slavery, when the United States abolished slavery, we used our government, our trading policies, our economy, and our power to force other people that we were doing trade with to end the practice of slavery. That's similar.
You know what? I'm for ending slavery, right? And I think we should do more to combat overseas sweatshops and things like that.
So what do you propose? Like sanctions approach?
Well, actually, that's perfect. That's a perfect segue into what I want to go with this. All right.
Okay.
So I personally, and I'm going to put that, I've argued many times that I don't think sanctions work. We can look at Cuba. We can look at North Korea. It's not debate, though. Are y'all arguing that the only win condition is economics, or can tariffs be used as a useful tool in the diplomatic field to get something done that's non-economic related, or at least not directly economically related? Do y'all agree that it can be a tool or not? We'll start with Tyler on this one.
I do. I agree. Tariffs and sanctions, actually, it's funny that he brought that up. Sanctions and tariffs kind of work in very similar ways in punishing somebody. We're basically saying, we're not going to trade with you at all. Not that we're going to slap an extra fee on it. We're not going to trade with you at all. Sanctions limit the free market in the exact same way. So yes, these things can act as tools, and more often than not, they act as tools to combat against bad practices and not actually as an economic policy.
Pentuple, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's obvious that these countries need access to our markets more than we need their products. And manufacturing has been going overseas for the last decades. Trump is to blame for 4 of the last 20 years of this. You guys claimed Dick Cheney as yours, so congrats, you're responsible for the Bush years now. But I think it's an effective tool that brings them to the table. They need access more than we need them. Ultimately, we want to do trade with these countries. I'm with Wick. I love free trade, but when these countries are putting tariffs on our goods, I think that we got to get them to the table. This is a really easy, respectful way to do it. Sanctions are a little more aggressive, but I don't think Tyler's wrong. Like when you implement a 100% or higher tariff on something, that essentially is a sanction. It's saying we don't want this in our markets. And there's reasons to do that, and then there's reasons to not do it, and it's got to be implemented intelligently. It's a tool. I'm sorry you didn't convince me by pulling up 2 examples of tariffs not working, but I hope he implements them strategically, intelligently, and that's ultimately, I think, what'll make this or break this.
Wick.
Okay, so is it a tool? Yes. Can it be used intelligently? Yes. Will it? No. Has it been in 90% of the cases that has been used, not just by Democrats or Republicans, but by Democrats as well? No, it has not. Again, the idea of what are the benefits from free trade, I think the sanction-like comparison isn't too far off the mark, right? Sanctions are used to hurt, to impose our will on others. And it can be effective when we want to end things like the Ukrainian war or slavery or things like that. But I think that it becomes, because we're willing to pay a cost to end those things, right? We're willing to pay a cost to end slavery, but we can't pretend that cost doesn't exist, that it doesn't hurt people, that doesn't hurt us in a lot of ways, right? So my argument here is that I don't think it is worth the cost, the pain it will cause, not just to Mexico or Canada, but to the consumers here in the U.S. I think we're hurting enough already. Don't add to our pain right now. Don't raise inflation even more, right? Because we can look at the 2018 tariffs, for example. Inflation rose because of the 2018 tariffs.
All right, thank you so much. Non-fraud, go ahead, and then we'll open it back up again.
Like, in principle, it's possible, but I don't think they have a good track record. And considering I think they have a major economic cost, I'm not worth the risk of imposing this major economic cost in America just to have some like potential benefit for car manufacturers to export to Europe. Like, it's just not worth it.
Well, I guess the way I'm framing it is, as y'all know, immigration is a very large issue to me, right? Do you think, like, for example, using the tariffs, like Trump has proposed putting a 25% tariff on Mexico if they don't stop the fentanyl, they don't start stopping the migrant convoys at the southern border? Do you think it's effective in that manner, or
No.
you're like, if it's not a direct economic thing?
I don't think it will be.
I don't think it will be either, but also I think Trump just hates the trade deficit. I don't think Trump is as much concerned about this as he is concerned about the trade deficit.
All right.
I think it will be, and it did work. I would say if you looked at the track record of almost every tariff, except for the Chinese ones that Trump put in place, he got a concession out of a country that they weren't willing to give up prior. And I would say that is a success, even if it wasn't his original aim to get whatever concession he got. He never got the wall, for instance, but instead he got the migrant protection protocols, which flat out ended the credible fear of prosecution in asylum abuse that's currently going on today.
I mean, I think it'll work on the border. If you create a tariff that they just can't afford economically, you're basically forcing their hand. I mean, like, we hate to do this, but it's like we have the ability to force Mexico's hand if we want. Like, we want to be diplomatic and stuff, but like, if Mexico really wanted to step, we could absolutely ruin them. Like, we're the big brother here, so I think it will work. I don't think we'll ultimately implement a 25% tariff because it would be probably that. I think that's how, like, they'll be at the table quick. 25 is a good number to bring them to the table real quick, because I don't think that they would even want 15%. But the point is, like, I think that this is going to get negotiations going. I don't know how you guys will judge whether it works or not, because ultimately this could succeed even just being used as a threat when they come to the table. But like I said, the tariffs are a negotiation tactic. It's a tool. They work for multiple different reasons. You can accomplish several different goals with them. Tariffs have not always worked. I'll concede that point. Tariffs have to be implemented strategically and intelligently, and this would be a good example of it. I don't think it has to be just for economic reasons. I think you could easily get Mexico to come and start like, right now, they have no economic incentive to start dealing with this border situation. What's their economic incentive? We're the ones dealing with the ones that are crossing into our country. They're coming into our country, right? So now we're giving them a financial incentive. Look, you really kind of have to do this, because if you decided not to come to the table, you're not going to
ask you directly. What do you think Trump is
25%.
wanting specifically for Mexico to do? What is Mexico specifically going to do because of the tariffs in order to stop?
Well, they have some control over the people crossing through their country up to our border. I mean, they could prevent that the same way we prevent it, for the way we try to prevent it.
There was over 200 200 political assassinations last election season in Mexico.
Well, that's a derail. We're talking about getting the Mexican government to care about the border when they're on the side that doesn't have a financial incentive to care about the border.
Right now. You understand?
I got three things.
Our side, when drugs cross into the U.S., they have no incentive to stop that.
Cartels operate and run a large portion of Mexico.
Okay, well, that's in part because the Mexican government's not doing enough, and this is why we get them to the table to say, start doing something.
Like, they can't. Like,
well,
they
better
can.
They better figure it out. We're gonna do it with or without you, brother. We're tariffing, baby. We won.
Three practical things that tell you win. So the first two are things that Trump did in office the first term that Biden repealed within his first 2 weeks in office. The first would be the migrant protection protocols. What we learned from that Texas Supreme Court case is that Texas is allowed to only deport Mexican citizens to Mexico. Anyone not from Mexico, Texas was not allowed to legally deport them to Mexico. We need Mexico's consent for that, and that was a big reason of why we needed Mexico for the migrant protection protocols to agree in order to give them people or have them hold people that were Mexican citizens. So that would be one. Two would be if you pass through a country that is asylum able to be applied for and you don't apply, you don't get to pass through Mexico. We want Mexico to guard their southern border and make sure every asylee applies to every country acceptable before they get to the United States. They don't get to pick and choose what country they want for asylum because those are people abusing the system. The third thing, this is speculation, but I think we are actually going to see troops go into Mexico working with the Mexican government to go after the cartel.
You think that? Hold on. You think that Trump is going to send troops into Mexico?
With Mexico's consent.
That's interesting. I don't know.
That is a rude.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong here. I won't die on this hill that this won't happen because crazier things have happened, right? But I think that at least in the political climate we have, sending troops into Mexico is just not something Trump will do because he realizes it's a loser politically. Let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the benefits. Actually, one of the biggest benefits actually for tariffs isn't economic, unfortunately. It's political. There are the competitive districts, right, in America. They tend to benefit a little bit from tariffs. But you know who doesn't? Red countries, Rust Belt countries, right? Counties, I should say. And we have studies on this, and I can link them if you'd like. But like the Republican-held counties, the deep red counties, they tend to face a lot of the pain. Appalachia faces a lot of the pain that tariffs pass along. So these are things that politicians use to kind of
what is that based on?
Buy off, right? Some of the more competitive districts, but it's at the cost of the average working American, and I'm tired of paying that cost, and I refuse because you are, wanting to have a trade war with Mexico and Canada. I just reject that premise.
We pushed that out through elections, though, and. Like people can look at you and say, you have all these climate hysteria, climate predictions for 60 years haven't panned out like scientists and politicians say. I refuse to pay any green taxes. It's not how it works, unfortunately. We let the people that we elect to office decide that, and it's Trump's turn to have 4 more years.
Okay, you're right. He's probably going to do it. I'm saying it's going to be bad. Yes.
What happens if it isn't? Are you going to be like, shit, I shouldn't have just...
If it isn't, then I will
with
apologize and say, wow, they worked this time. Wow, I was wrong. These Trumps did amazingly, and I haven't felt any cost from this, and the benefits were amazing. I will come and I will say that. I don't think I'm going to be doing that, though.
What's your definition of success, Pentuple? What do you hope to see out of them?
I want to see manufacturing back in the U.S. Things that we measured already. This is like, what do you mean?
Oh wait, well, first
is
of
it
all,
a good thing to have manufacturing?
It's not as obvious as you would think, but we'll get to that point. Actually, I just want to, do we think that, for example,
you want to read the headline you found on Google? Why are you here? Why are you? What are we doing? This is so much more interesting without the kid from Google.
I know you hate me because
we're talking about things from like an understanding we can have. You just go read whatever you want. This is so boring.
Go read Greg Mankiw, Principles of Economics, but it like.
I would like you to explain that a little bit, like before we move on too far from that. What do you mean? I think I'm a little confused. What do you mean by it's not necessarily as straightforward as you think that manufacturing? Because all right, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm trying to be unbiased here, but to me, just as an unbiased normie who doesn't have any experience in manufacturing, right? I would think, hey, having more manufacturing in America would be a good thing. Why is that not necessarily true, Nonfon? What do you think? Why is that?
Because other sectors are more productive, and we don't want to be. There's an opportunity cost to everything. So having a bunch of people manufacture stuff, do final assembly when they could be designing iPhones, which is much more productive, is a net cost.
Ace, get rid of unions. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I also Pentuple. I want to walk. I want to walk down two two roads of thought with
No,
you.
it's-
Okay. Do you think that tariffs on steel would be beneficial to American manufacturing?
I don't know. I think that's a much more nuanced conversation. Like, I mean, there's ways that I don't know. I don't know the steel industry. We're talking about tariffs in general. Talking about trying to deal with losing manufacturing for the last 20 years for like
Well,
obvious
there's a
reasons that we can't
reason-
compete with the prices of.
If I may interject, because I just realized something, right? And I think it's worth pointing out from Tyler and from Pentuple both. Your argument seems to be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misreading this, but you see this as a bargaining chip. You're like, the tariffs are there, and they're just in case to make sure that these countries do.
In
what
some
we
cases,
want.
for sure.
Right.
It's going to be different
So you
on each
recognize-
product
you
and on
recognize-
each country, for sure.
Yeah, but you recognize, like, fundamentally, that these things are kind of like a mutually assured destruction threat. We recognize
Not
that it's going
really.
to hurt us both. That's why
No,
you're
it's
hoping
we're
that
watching.
the country doesn't do, or the country bends the knee, as you would say, so that we don't have to implement.
I would
the
just say
tariffs.
they're
'Cause
benefiting.
Deep down, you understand that the tariffs are going to suck.
No, I'm saying they're benefiting from the current trade arrangements. We could at least stop the bleeding so that it's an even trade arrangement. Ideally, we should both be competing to have the better side of the deal, which is what they're doing. And that's why I don't blame these countries for having tariffs on our products. And when we're not
A lot of times they
smart
put
and
in
strategic
tariffs
enough to
as a
implement them
response
back.
to ours.
But I think what you're saying is like, yes, in some cases, these are just a strategic maneuver to get them to the table. In some cases, there will be legitimate revenue collection here. In some cases, it'll just be evening the market out for foreign cars and American cars. I mean, like, this is.
Oh my God.
It is as simple as that's what it is. It has to be implemented intelligently. Like you're saying, if we go, we're like, oh, steel, what should steel be? Let's do 100%. Like maybe maybe we can't produce that and we need to have it at 20%. And that will allow people to still do it. I'm just saying these have to be implemented smartly, but that's not what we're talking about, is it?
I don't want nuance. I want you to explain it to me.
Well, hold on. Hold on. Yeah,
I'm not the guy who pretends to be a pseudo expert because I can Google things in real time and then just read you that and pretend like I was thinking that the whole time.
I can do it with my eyes closed if you want. I don't have to.
No, I'm just. There's a time and place. I'm not shaming you for going on Google. I'm just saying, like, it's not about the gotcha. I'm just gonna Google. I'm just gonna put in ChatGPT. Give me a rebuttal for this.
He's doing this
I'm
because
not
he doesn't
talking about
understand
you,
anything
Wick. I'm not talking about you, Wick. I'm not talking about you, Wick. I'm not talking about you, Wick.
Argument point. You know this guy.
I'm not talking about you, Wick.
Name Nonfon.
I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you, Wick, at all.
All right. So hold on.
Step up to the white man, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Hey, Wick. Create a
All right, hold
question. Wick.
All right.
Pentuple. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, hold on. All right, let's go. So Nonfon, I know Wick came in there. Nonfon, you wanted to ask a second thing here. I know you had a two-parter. Go ahead with your second one, and then we can go over to Tyler. I see you.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really answer my first one, and I also want to ask Tyler about the first one as well. But
Perfect. We'll go with whatever you got, and then we'll go to Tyler.
yeah, okay. So I'm curious. Do you think taxing like an export would be beneficial to American manufacturing?
You're asking me if we're tax and export?
Yeah, if taxing exports would be beneficial to American manufacturing.
I don't know.
Oh,
You'd
come on,
have to
really?
implement it in a way. I don't know. What are we talking?
Really?
In general, do tariffs work? Should we ever implement a tax on an exported good? Sure. I don't know. I could probably be convinced on that. This isn't like a passionate pillar of my political beliefs, but it's just like I don't know. Give me an example. When would we do that? Do you think we should?
Thought exercise. What do you got? You got an example of thought exercise, Nonfon, or you just?
Yeah. Like, what is this?
Yeah, I don't think we should. Generally, intuitively, obviously, like taxing exports, if manufacturers rely on. Basically, kinda.
Generally, you are correct. Taxing
Opposite
exports is bad.
of what a tariff is intended to do, and you're saying that's bad. And that's your argument.
My point is going to be that
Hold on. One at a time. Go ahead, Nonfon. Go ahead.
My point is going to be that putting tariffs on imports actually reduces exports as well. So one of the reasons it does that is you tariff intermediate goods like steel, which are used to make plants in manufacturing plants to export stuff. If you tariff everything, you tariff wood from other countries that are also used to make another
reason
thing.
to tariff and export. What if we need this product? We don't want companies just sending this overseas. I could be like, yeah, if you're gonna send this overseas, you can do it, but you're gonna pay. And then
I'm not-
that'll disincentivize this company from sending the product overseas. So in that case, I would be on board.
I'm not.
This is
Oh
something.
my god.
You're correct.
Hold
Hold on,
This isn't just
hold on.
Wait, this is so dumb
You're
because I'm not
correct.
disputing that. What I'm saying is that would hurt American manufacturing. If you think the cost to American manufacturing is warranted by some national security
don't
concern.
even buy into that, right? So here's
them
the
from
thing.
shipping the product overseas instead of just selling it domestically. That doesn't even like
What
you're
they
just
will
saying.
do is they won't sell it at all. The alternative, right, to it being, in a lot of cases, to these products being produced overseas and imported into the country, isn't that the alternative isn't we just make it here for a little bit more. The alternative is they don't get made. A lot of the companies just don't do it. They don't
If the products are
increase
necessary
their domestic production.
nobody wants
They don't
them.
increase their domestic
there's
industry.
demand.
They decide it's not worth it to them, and so they simply don't make it. Right?
If
This happens.
there's no
The
demand for it.
alternative to free
Where do the
trade
market
isn't
forces go? What do you mean?
$2,000
There's
iPhones.
something
There's no
about it
iPhones
just
at all.
disappears. Like, all these market forces just disappear. Like there's no demand for products anymore. Like,
That's a good question.
with not
Hold on.
manufacturing.
Lead,
I want
right?
to go to Tyler, but I want to ask you a question, Wick, real quick.
Go ahead,
So,
please.
I know the libertarians. If I have any watching, they're always arguing that the market will take care of itself, right? And in your argument you just made is that a lot of times the product doesn't get made. The libertarian argument in that case would be, well, then apparently that wasn't a product that people really needed or wanted. So how would you argue against that? And then we're going to go to Tyler. I know he's been waiting, so go ahead, Wick, and then Tyler.
Yeah, there. In a lot of cases, there are products that we have that is nice to have, but that I do not need, right, to have. So my iPhone, or not my iPhone, my Android, for example. Look, my Android. It's nice. It's fun. I got a picture of my dog on it. Right.
You get the Tesla phone.
Entirely not needed. If companies decided that it was too expensive to produce and that I had to pay like a bunch of money to get this, I couldn't afford it, right? So no matter how much I need a product, unless it's a base necessity, or how much I want a product, if it's over a certain price, I simply don't buy that product because my wanting to afford a thing, right, is higher than my desire for that product. So this isn't the case for things like eggs or food and things like that, but it is the case for luxury goods.
It is the case for things like food, though, because people buy alternative foods. They buy other foods.
All right, let's go to Tyler here. Tyler, go ahead. I know you're dying to get in.
Yeah, there's three things I want to mention that already got passed that I just wanted to jump into. So, going into first the steel tariffs, I can tell you a lot what happened there because we saw it in real time. It happened. So what was happening is NAFTA was in place. China was dumping buttloads of super cheap steel into both Mexico and Canada. This cheap steel sucks for manufacturing. It's made super poorly. Unions won't use it. So the reason I'm pro-tariff is because I'm pro-worker. I am a person of the left, and tariffs benefit the worker. So in this instance, you have U.S. production now having a reason to increase output, hire more jobs, take in more
Did
investment.
they do that?
In certain degrees, the tariff wasn't in place long enough for it to happen.
Spoiler alert.
They didn't, but it wasn't in place. But I'm telling you, in a circumstance where the tariff was actually in place for more than just a negotiating tactic, because all it was a negotiating tactic. But if it's in place longer, we could see these investments picking up. We could see these manufacturing output increasing, making it cheaper to make this actual better steel that is used by union laborers, that is a higher quality. And then we also have our steel being exported. Now, to go into the second question, generally, yes, if you tax an export, it's not good for manufacturing. I think he actually countered that argument pretty well in saying that not 100% of the time is selling the most goods the best for the economy, for national security, for a multitude of reasons. So if we have a lack of scarcity or a lack of elasticity of a product, then generally exporting it to sell something to Russia that we actually need here in the country would probably be a good idea. You can get more money selling it over there because they'll pay whatever the fuck for it. But if we actually put a tax on it and make it so you lose money by selling it to them, paying outsource outrageous money for some scarce good.
Can you give us an example of a good you would consider that we should?
No, generally no. Generally no.
So you can't think of an actual example. I agree with you hypothetically. There might be a product or a case that I can think of, but you can't think of one. I can't think of one. Yeah, I think that's pretty strong argument for my side here.
I mean,
Yeah, then
also,
if you agree generally that taxing exports is bad, my next point is going to be is that tariffs also reduce export via resource allocation, exchange rate appreciation, production cost, and retaliatory tariffs. So do you want to run down those?
Going back to my original point, if you look at just the economic impacts of any regulation, any tariff, any policy, you see reduction in the market. What you're arguing for is laissez-faire economics, but only for this one thing. And then every other department, you're cool with regulation, you're cool with workers' rights, you're cool with worker protections, which I am as well. Don't get me wrong. It's just if I'm cool with all those things and I'm going to ignore the economic impacts because of a greater good, why am I going to ignore the economic impacts of us ignoring like workers committing suicide because they're working 70 hours a week?
What is this argument?
Well, first of all,
I mean, the easy answer is I think some of those things are net benefits. I don't think tariffs are net benefits.
Someone from committing suicide?
Can you explain? You said retaliatory tariffs. First of all, some of our tariffs are retaliatory.
We're going to come back
But
to that.
second, why do you think they would implement retaliatory tariffs? Like, why would they do tariffs? What's their logic?
Because politicians don't understand. Politicians don't understand economics. A lot of
ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. A lot of politicians don't understand economics. They're stupid. And two, politicians are in democratic countries are subject to their voters. Voters have an anti-foreign bias, a zero-sum bias, and an anti-market bias. Tariffs are like where all three of those come together. They think that trade is zero-sum when in fact trade is mutually beneficial. They're anti-foreign, as in they think foreign goods are cheaper quality. When in reality, if they were, they wouldn't be buying them. Their revealed preferences to buy imported goods. And what was the other one? The anti-market bias. They're more likely to think of themselves as the victim of this market interaction than the beneficiary.
Yeah, and so I'm going to move the topic. Hold on.
It's been declining for the last 20 years. Like, are you aware of how serious of an issue this is? You're acting like oh, it's just whatever, just happening.
What's been declining?
I want to come back to that. As the content brain in me just can't resist coming back to this thing that just happened, which is tariffs causing suicides via the laissez-faire economic theory. Wick, go ahead. You seem to have some thoughts on tariffs preventing suicide.
You mentioned that 70 work-hour week employees will commit suicide, and he's tying this. I'm not sure. That's why I asked for clarification, but we didn't get.
I was just giving you an example. I already named like 5
somehow
others,
stop that.
like intellectual property theft and other. I've already named multiple other. I was just giving
Tariffs
you the
don't
most
stop
salacious
intellectual
one.
property theft either.
I was giving you the most salacious one, but that's what Trump was aiming with the China tariffs to prevent. He was fighting against intellectual property.
It didn't work.
It didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work. That was the one Trump tariff that didn't actually work. I admitted that right up in front in my introduction. Every other one I'd say was a success.
I mean, I think what's worse than being exploited by capitalism is not being exploited by capitalism. Like, you can say we can use tariffs to not buy from like slave-made, sweatshop goods or whatever, but like they're just not going to have a job then. You're removing literally the best option. The reason people work in sweatshops is because the sweatshops provide a higher standard of living than the other areas around them.
Nice justification for slavery. Let's bring that back too, because that would fit your argument. Like, what the fuck?
I think that's justification. I think it's justification for free exchange, not slavery. Slavery is not free exchange.
Look, if
These people have no workers'
if
rights.
you want to
and you're like,
stop
"Oh, it's
evil
not
around the
right."
world, there are ways to stop evil around the world, right? We can do that without using tariffs.
Sure, but
Well,
the same
okay.
thing.
Well, okay. Actually, let's talk about that, right? So, all right. I kind of was wanting this point to be brought up a little earlier. We didn't really touch on it. Could Trump claim a win? For example, is there a scenario in general where Trump could claim a win if, say, like he used the tariff and because like Mexico, for example, is our biggest trading partner, right? Canada's our second biggest. Now China is our third biggest, right? And part of that's because Trump went so against them, in his term. If he said, hey, Mexico, I'm going to put a 25% tariff on you if you don't do X, Y, Z, and then they actually stop the migrant caravans at the southern border, and he doesn't implement the tariff, could the threat of the tariff or actually putting a tariff on them until they do this and like them doing it, would that be considered a win if he was able to do it, even if there was some kind of economic hardship that came in the short term? Or like, what would y'all consider that a win?
Can I imagine scenarios where it works? Yes, I can. But I can imagine a lot of things. I can imagine a situation where you have a communist country that feeds its people. But in practice, that doesn't happen, right? Like, I can imagine a lot of don't actually happen in practice. And so, yes, can I imagine it? Yes. Is there a possibility I'm wrong here? Yeah, sure. But I don't think I am. And again, not just from a economic perspective, but I think from a moral perspective. I think from a moral perspective, tariffs and free trade is good, and tariffs and protectionism is bad. It's anti-choice.
So should we scold other countries that tariff our goods,
Yes.
and that's how we should just
Yes.
approach it? We shouldn't
Scold?
come back. We should just
Not
scold them,
scold.
just be like, please
But
stop
we-
tariffing us. We
Here's
promise
what-
we'll never
the
tariff you.
biggest price
No,
that a country
Jeffrey.
that tariffs us can pay is they don't get to do business with us, and their economy suffers because of it.
Okay, well,
Spain
hey,
traditionally was an empire that, because they implemented so many tariffs, turned into a second-rate nothing.
There's only
So-
so many mechanisms the president has at their disposal. So if Congress doesn't like the president, if the president ignores a congressional rule, one of the mechanisms that Congress has at their disposal to punish the president is the power of the purse. They can not fund certain elements of the executive branch, basically rendering them inert, unless the employees want to come in and work for free. This is effectively is working for the same way. The tariffs are using to punish bad actors, not and an economic. You're right. Yes, it does hurt economically, but so does pretty much everything the government does. And unless we're arguing for anarcho-capitalism, which would be the least
But it's
exploitive
who
of
gets
these
hurt.
guys.
That's important here, Tyler.
Surprised
It's
that
whether or
short
not it's a net
term-
benefit.
right?
When
we can
we
look
see
at
short
who's
term
paying the
prices,
cost.
when we
It's
see
not-
short term prices go up because American manufacturing has either not caught up or doesn't exist for these products, that short term is we know that that's going to happen. That's what's opening the market for other manufacturing. That's the whole point. And if they try to pass off the whole tariff to the customer, that's going to open the market. If they want to eat it, then maybe they don't open the market. They can keep their low prices, but they're going to be eating the tariff. So either way, we benefit.
Wick,
We
go ahead.
benefit. I will be paying more for groceries, right? I will be paying
For goods
more for
overseas.
products, and so will you.
But money
Right?
won't be going overseas. It will be
Hey,
staying in the
Pentuple,
economy.
we discussed
So
this
even
last
if-
time. You don't know how to
It's-
balancing payments works at all, which is why you're so fucking scared of actually engaging with any like economic argument with me, because you don't know shit about it. The money doesn't go overseas. The money either comes back through investment. Do you agree that we have a trade deficit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the logical implication of that is that money is coming back to the U.S. via financial account surplus. But you don't understand the words I just said, so I can break them down for you since you never Google stuff.
Manufacturing is getting sucked overseas, so like you're not quite the person I'd want to put in charge of this problem. So
Wait, why is that a bad
respectfully,
thing? Why is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing?
why is it a bad thing that?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it a bad thing that American
Yes.
manufacturing is going overseas, taking
justify it,
American
yes.
jobs away?
Taking
Well,
there
like,
are American jobs
if-
out of manufacturing. You're aware of that, right?
We're so far away. Like you're trying to pull like what you like a.
So do you think it protects jobs to put tariffs up to protect manufacturing?
Yes, that's
So
the whole
the
point.
entire-
Literally,
the
the whole
en-
point.
Hold on, we lose jobs.
Trade,
Tariffs
exactly.
cost us
Yes.
jobs.
Improve American manufacturing space in this in the competitive space.
Hey, no,
for the
we know
market.
this is true.
That's the whole
Like
point.
we lost jobs net, right? Net lost to jobs.
Basic, yeah, every single
almost
study
every
I've seen.
time tariffs have been
That's what I've been saying. We've been losing and hemorrhaging jobs in the manufacturing.
lose
Because
jobs
we
from
keep
the
doing
tariffs.
tariffs.
We lose it. The entire point of tariffs is
Maybe
to take
have to
resources.
implement it intelligently. Like I said, we have to. There's more nuance to this. You're just saying tariffs
No,
don't work
oh my
because
God.
one type of
Literally-
people doesn't work.
Yep, but literally the entire point of tariffs is to take resources being devoted to other things, resources which are providing jobs, by the way, and shift them towards producing a less productive thing, something that could be imported for cheaper.
I usually don't understand what you're saying with that, but go ahead.
Tyler, go ahead.
We understand that you don't understand. We get it. That's the position you do because you don't understand what we're saying. We know you've told us this entire time.
In 2018, and now tariffs don't work, even though every government uses them across the world. They've been used for hundreds of years as a negotiating tactic. And then you
is
guys went on
insane.
Google and discovered the whole world is wrong.
You can't engage with anything because you don't have the knowledge to. This is absolutely insane. You should Google Greg Mankiw interdependence and gains from trade because you don't have a basic understanding of how this works. Do you
To
agree?
go on Google so you can pull up some statistic. You are literally the
I'm
least
not
interesting
citing
person on this
statistics.
entire panel. Nothing. I can't stop laughing at the voice cracks.
Yeah,
All
thanks,
right,
dude.
Tyler,
The
go ahead,
reason
Marty.
you won't engage is because you literally don't understand anything, and anyone with literally a voice crack, puberty, high school understanding of economics knows why you're full of shit. But
Imagine getting beaten by this guy, by the way.
He actually made a pretty
Shameful.
solid
No
point
offense,
in
not
there.
fun, but shameful.
He made a pretty solid point in there that got glossed over. He was talking about when you implement a tariff, you get a higher inter-country velocity of money because that money is circulating more. Now, your counterpoint was that money does leave the country, but it ends up coming back more often in investment. You are correct. If you just stop the equation there, you're right. If you continue to look, that investment means that foreign company owns U.S. manufacturing, and they're making and taking more money out of the economy.
Manufacturing that wouldn't have happened without the investment, so I still think it's a net benefit.
Not necessarily. That is a guess. So that manufacturing could have also come from U.S. if the tariff would actually make that more likely. When Wick's saying is a loss of jobs, yes, Wick, you're correct. If we're going to take a U.S.-based company that's producing and manufacturing here and offshore it to another country, you're able to actually have significantly more jobs from that country. You may have to downsize if you keep them in the U.S. because we have a high cost of labor, because we have high worker protections and worker rights.
It's not just that. It's not just
opportunity costs.
Also, we get like, for example, a tariff on a steel import. Let's use that for example. There are plenty of businesses who are export businesses, right? And they have to downsize because they can't afford it, right?
For sure.
And then, just adding on to that, speaking of, currency exchange, by the way, tariffs also appreciate the dollar. They make the dollar more expensive for other countries to buy, which means other countries can buy less exports. It follows from logic. You're, supplying less dollars because you're buying less imports. And also we have empirical evidence to back this up. There's a big IMF study that found that, 151 countries from 1963 to 2014 found that tariffs have very small effects on trade deficits because of exchange rate appreciation.
You are correct about pretty much what you guys are saying here. That being said,
we know we've been correct this entire night. Yes. Thank you for acknowledging it. Thank you for recognizing it. I do
absolutely.
Appreciate
I said you're doing a pretty damn good job earlier bringing up just the cons. You're making a very compelling argument.
Can I read something that you wrote to me earlier that you were going to end my whole career?
Oh, I was just messing with you. I look forward
that
to
that was the comment that was said, and it seems like it's not going that way right now.
Yeah, in private, it like beforehand, he was all like, "I'm going to end your whole career," and tonight he's like, "You're just correct. You're so correct, Wick. You're the most correct on this. You're just doing such a damn good job." Wow.
I can't get a word between you guys yelling over each other, to be completely honest. So that all being said, now tariffs again. You're pigeonholing what is a successful tariff based on just economics, when in reality you're saying at the same time tariffs don't really give you an economic benefit. They don't. We're giving you multiple examples.
I will give you one economic benefit from tariffs. $5 from grassroots hegemon to say these populists keep twisting themselves into pretzels to make sure I have more money.
I'm not a populist.
Yes, you advocating for tariffs is making me money. I agree.
I my issue is like a lot of people like. Let me get a point out.
You talked like 10 times as much as me so far. Let me finish my point.
Sure.
Okay. So, Wick, again, you cut me off with your super chat from what I was
saying.
Well,
what I'm doing is I'm making you look bad in front of your niece, and I apologize.
She lied.
She's going to think less of you now. She's going to be like, wow, Uncle, you embarrassed yourself. Right? Well, now I can't take you seriously.
So, again, I can give you situations where tariffs are deflationary or work against inflation. Deflationary is not the right word. Where they work against inflation, where you have a higher velocity of money within the country, you see increased productivity. I've given you situations where Trump used these specific tariffs to get different policies passed. None of these points have been rejected at all.
Hold on.
You're saying your body and me here. You haven't argued back a single one of my points.
I mean, I'll argue with some of the things, but I think like my big issue is that so many people treat tariffs like Pentuple here, which is why he won't engage, as like a magic bullet that's like good for the economy and also might do these like other special things.
Repeatedly said you have to implement them intelligently and strategically, and you have to account for a lot of different variables.
Imagine thinking that putting a 25% tariff on Mexico, which will decrease and hurt Mexico. Imagine that will decrease immigration.
I wonder if that's why they come to the table engaging on this immigration thing.
No, it will simply make it more likely that there's economic devastation south of the border, which will make it more likely that you'll have more immigrants trying to flee from America.
Allow economic devastation rather than engage with this issue?
Net immigration from Mexico has been zero for 2 decades. It's countries south of Mexico that they're allowing to walk through the country without applying for asylum. We don't want to get into the border stuff. That's where my expertise lie more. A lot of these people are Mexico turning a blind eye to criminals, allowing them to come through, turning a blind eye to caravans that come from countries to the south of them. So it isn't just Mexico's hardships. It's South American countries for the most part, at a big rate, bringing these people. So just to say, like, a tariff on Mexico probably won't go into effect, because I guarantee you whoever he threatens with these tariffs is going to come to the table, which they always have.
Okay.
Well, go ahead, Nonfon. Yeah.
Can I real quick? I want to push back on like the productivity point you made. My understanding is that free trade is basically mechanistically pro-productivity. It increases productivity because there's gains from specialization. You're allowed to specialize in producing one thing, and the other country specializes in producing another thing, and you can all actually get more altogether by trading than if you just produced both things yourself. And again, that IMF study, 151 countries, 1962 to 2014, found that tariffs reduced productivity as well. So
I don't think anyone here is anti-free trade. Saying that you want to fight back against people using
Anti-free trade.
Yeah, so are regulations. So you would favor regulation?
Depends on the
what
regulation.
regulations?
Yes, that's a yes. You are in favor of them. Then that means you're anti-free trade by your own stand. Anytime you impede the market on any level, it works against the laissez-faire system. But there's positives to having worker protections, to having wages, to having all sorts of things. Minimum wage.
Those positives
I mean, I agree exactly. It's a net benefit.
Yes. There are regulations that we can look at, that we can track, that we can say, hey, this has led overall to an abundance of wealth in this nation, right? An abundance of safety in this nation, abundance of productivity in this nation. We can't do the same for tariffs.
Well, let's talk about a point like kind of Pentuple kind of made. Y'all made a pretty good argument of why the negatives, all the cons, everything. But here's kind of a question I'm kind of wondering: why, like, if it's also always bad, or the great majority of the time bad, why is it that for hundreds of years countries have used this as a means? Like, if it's just so bad all this time, wouldn't they have just stopped using it as a tactic?
Are stupid.
Yeah, part of it is like people are stupid. They don't listen to David Ricardo. And then part of it is that tariffs were really easy to implement back in the day. It was really hard to do income tax back in the day, but now it's easier to do income tax, and tariffs were way easier back then.
You said one of the drawbacks of tariffs is that we'll expect retaliatory tariffs, right? Is that a logical response for a country to do retaliatory tariffs?
Nope, it's bad for them too, but it does happen.
It's not a logical response, but it's an expected, but it's a stupid thing to do.
Yeah, like you want to talk about the farmers that had to be subsidized because of Trump's tariffs.
If you were looking at this situation with Japan, for example, where they put a tariff on our cars such that we don't sell our cars in their markets, but they sell their cars in our markets, are you saying like
that tariff is going to hurt them?
I'm just saying if we could either both have 100 or both have 0, right? That's free trade. It's not fair if one of us is doing it and the others isn't. So you're just saying you want to end up.
It's not fair. That's a value judgment. But my position is that even if Japan has
if Wick, do you want it to be 0-0 is what you're saying? Is that 100-100 is different than 0-0 and that's way preferable? Because to me, it's almost like no difference. If they don't want to do trade with us, that's fine. If they want to do trade with us, it can't be one-way tariff and then we're just going to like let them get away with that. So how would you respond to it? What would you do?
If I had a country, right, and again, I'm not an economics expert, so I might be wrong here. This could be the wrong answer. But if I had a country that comes in and says, hey, we are going to not allow you to export your goods into our country.
Thank you for the 10 bits, Fly as Kanye West. I appreciate it.
Right? Then I would simply let it happen because it will benefit us and hurt them.
Okay.
Yeah, Pentuple, can you explain?
That's just simple.
I was basically making the same argument. My position is that regardless of what other countries do, it's a net benefit to the U.S. to engage in essentially unilateral free trade. So even if Japan has a 100% tariff, I believe it's a net benefit to not tariff Japan.
Just argue that whether we're tariffed or not is just always a net bag. It's always you just say it. You just say it. You just it's a negative and like that's it's like I don't know. Okay, you guys think it's a net negative. I don't know why, but okay. I don't think it's cool.
The gain to consumers is greater than the loss to producers. Is the reason why. Because
you think that's a one-sided deal.
To be clear, I don't think it's always a net negative. I just think almost always it is a net negative. Well, so the reason why it's a net benefit, is because the gain to consumers outweighs the cost to producers. There are some jobs lost to trade, but consumer surplus increases more than producer surplus goes down.
This is all about incentivizing companies to hire American workers. We want the manufacturing here, not just because like it's cool. Like we want employed people in America. We want this is important. Well, how do you suppose we stop companies from just constantly producing products overseas and actually get Americans hired again.
We have,
I think free trade increases
mechanisms
jobs.
we have used to do this, right? Tax benefits, right? To
The free
hiring
trade is what's
Americans,
causing right now this hemorrhaging of our manufacturing jobs. What are you guys doing to reverse the trend? It's not working right now. We
Why
have
do
to
we
do
need to
something.
reverse
This is
that?
kind of the point. This is why Trump won. This is why you guys lost the election. How long is this going to take for you guys to just understand that we're doing it?
We lost the election because
you guys have already failed. You guys have overseen the hemorrhaging of manufacturing.
Pentuple won't engage this because he can't answer this.
Left on crime, immigration, and drugs.
You guys have been supporting the people destroying it.
Let me
guns,
reframe this.
sorry.
Let me
Crime,
reframe
immigration, and guns. We went left after 2012, and that's why we were losing in elections, and that sucks.
So-
but it is what it is. It has nothing to do with NAFTA, free trade, any of that, right? It has nothing to do with tariffs. It has crime, immigration, guns.
Well,
and we
I'm
never
just
got it.
I disagree with that. I
It's
think-
nice to meet you. I'm just kidding.
I think the immigration for sure, and some of those other ones for sure. Like, I think the economy, and I think tariffs speak to the economy. I think the righties have kind of touched on this a little bit in this, but they haven't really dived into it. Why is it that, say, if tariffs don't work, right? Why is it that we see like places? Let's use Japan for example. Japan has a pretty high tax on like U.S. cars. Why don't we see the U.S. making inroads in Japan with their car market? While over here, it seems that since we don't have tariffs on Japan, they're able to take advantage of that situation and have. I mean, everybody drives. There's tons of Toyotas. I see tons of commercial every day. I see Nissan. I mean, I could be wrong. One of these could be American if I say the wrong one. But there's a lot of foreign cars. It seems like in their case, tariffs are working. Why would y'all not consider that a win, like for tariffs?
I don't know what you mean by working. I agree, like, our cars can't be sold there if there's tariffs on them, but I think that hurts them. I think they'd benefit from buying American cars. I also think Americans would benefit from that.
Well, yeah, I agree. Americans would benefit from other countries buying our cars, but doesn't it seem like it incentivizes them not to if you have a tariff or not to even be sold over there? Wouldn't you say that's an effective tariff in Japan's case where they're taxing American cars with a tariff and then they're producing more there and then we're basically not tariffing them? You don't see, like, that's kind of the point Pentuple was making, I believe, is that they're sitting here.
I think it costs Japan productivity. I think it costs Japan jobs. I think it costs Japanese consumers. Wait, Pentuple won't engage with this because he doesn't understand it.
For American companies, you're talking about entering a market, and it's like if DraftKings goes into Texas, is that good for DraftKings? It's like, obviously having access to more market is a plus for an American company.
I
what
agree.
Do you mean?
I also think it's a plus for Japan, which is why
cars. Fucking horrible take.
Hold on. Again, because we're talking about fair economics a lot here, and a lot of times it's not. So what a more realistic situation would be is a foreign company selling cars, tariffing ours, and then coming into our markets and undercutting our car prices, hurting our jobs here. We see our car manufacturing output go down, thus the amount of jobs we have in the United States go down because we can't compete with these unfair markets.
That doesn't
don't pay
follow.
their laborers right. That doesn't. I mean, it does absolutely 100%.
Car jobs will go down. It'll probably increase jobs in other sectors, though. In fact, again, the entire
now workers have access to cheaper cars, which they can use to drive to their other jobs. And they don't have to pay
right now with the worker
they would have
protections.
tariffs been implemented.
Look at OSHA versus worker protections in China and tell me that it's even remotely the same. They don't treat.
That's not my position.
I'm telling you, my position.
It's cheaper though. That's it's cheaper.
My position is that it's a net benefit for the U.S. to engage in trade, regardless of what other countries do. That includes regardless of the regulations. So long as there's a relative price difference that differs from domestic opportunity cost, there are gains from trade to be had. It doesn't matter if they get there from regulations or from subsidizing the industries.
Dude, filibustering the same thing over and over.
I'm not filibustering.
I've already addressed your argument. Regulations, sanctions.
Your argument, Tyler, is just that regulations can sometimes be good, and I don't disagree with that. But we're arguing about a specific thing, which is tariffs, which we can demonstrate overall are not effective for what they are trying to do. They have a negligible effect on domestic product growth, right?
Migrant protection.
I did address those.
Put in place because of the tariffs.
Wait, what did you say? Sorry,
Mike's messing up. I can't understand you.
Stay in Mexico. Mexico has been very clear. They did not want to stay in Mexico. Trump forced their hand with the tariffs to implement the migrant protection protocols. This is well documented. As soon as Biden pulled away,
and we paid too high a cost for that.
We did it.
We've paid too high a cost doing nothing.
You know what Mexico's asking for now?
Hold on. No,
Mexico's asking for $20 billion.
are you talking about the
now.
2018 tariffs? Okay, I again, we have data on this. The 2018 tariffs cost us jobs, cost us money, cost us wages, raised inflation. I don't know what to tell
Let me
you.
finish my point. This tariff was never implemented. It was a threat. You're talking about the steel tariffs that were used for USMCA. I'm talking about hypothetical threatened tariffs that were used to get a country to the
So tariffs
negotiating
that
table.
don't happen work better than tariffs that do?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. They're not always used to be implemented. They're a negotiation time to bring people to the table saying, look, we need this.
We're
Here's the
talking
reason
about
you do
tariffs
it, because
tonight.
you suffer financial consequences if you don't do something. That's yes, we are not intending to implement all of these tariffs. A lot of these tariffs are intended to say, do this thing that you're not financially incentivized to do until we do
have
this.
other threats
We
that
have-
we can use.
The idea
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say tariffs only work when they're not implemented, I agree. Like, I don't know what to tell
Yeah,
you. Like,
that's your argument. Tariffs work best when not implemented.
reasons.
Okay. No argument.
All right, hold on. One at a time here. One at a time. All right, Tyler, go ahead, and
The
then we'll come back.
argument you're giving me is just talking past my point. You keep going to this small version of what you say is a win. This is like saying nobody uses it. Civil rights is a net benefit to our economy, or a net negative to our economy. Would you get rid of civil rights? No, because you agree with it. I think $300 billion a year in intellectual property theft. I think people coming through the border illegally, sanctioned by a government that's turning a blind eye, is enough to punish them. Not following the law is enough to punish them. They are being punished with tariffs. Talking
Hold
about
on.
the economic benefits does not refute this argument. It ignores it.
I don't want to get sidetracked, but I think that civil rights is a net benefit to the economy, actually.
All right, 1
I
second.
don't think so.
1 second.
You
Alex,
were
thank you,
saying- oh my
Jesse,
God.
for the sub. You are
But
the
I
greatest. Go
didn't
ahead,
have
please. Go ahead.
breakfast yesterday. Type response.
I don't think it actually. We could get into the nitty gritty.
I'm saying if it was a net negative to the economy, we still wouldn't argue to get rid of it. Your response that it was.
The word
You just,
if.
did you get the point he was making? You didn't get it.
No,
He was
made
saying
a statement.
if it was a net negative economically, we still
wasn't
wouldn't want to
asking
get negative because that's
hypothetical.
not the end of the
You know what a
conversation.
to be clear, I think stuff can be a net negative. I think
What
stuff
if you
can be a
didn't
net
eat
negative to the
breakfast
economy, but
yesterday?
outweighed in other things?
All right,
I did breakfast yesterday.
all right, hold on. Hold on, everybody stop. Nobody can understand. Everybody's, for some reason, maybe it's on my end, every time everybody starts talking, the mics start cutting out, except for Wicks. So,
Yes, because I'm the only one who has.
What mic is that, by the way?
Yeah,
I need to
so-
know what mic that is. Please let I will DM you.
let's try one at a time if we can. I know there's some exchanges, but
Okay.
it
So
starts going, that's no good for
Sure.
anybody.
Let me just kind of be a little more concise, perhaps. Right. The argument from my opponents here is that these tariffs are not to be actually implemented, but they are more of a threat, more of a tool to punish if they don't follow through the threat. My argument is that we can use other means that we don't look feckless when we don't follow through on if they decide to call our bluff. Right? We can use other threats, other means, other mechanisms. Tariffs don't work. And if your best argument is that, well, they're used as a threat, so we're not actually going to do them, I mean, that's an argument you can
that's
make.
that's
it is
totally
what
not
it is.
what we've been
$50
doing.
From
We've been
grassroots
saying
hegemon
it
to
can be
say,
used
I have a
to
lot of
just
people brighter than
negotiation.
me as friends who are economists, and the only thing they agree on is that tariffs are piss. Thank you for the $50. And yeah, $50 says I'm right. The free
You
market
can implement
token.
tariffs to collect revenue. You can implement tariffs to remove products from the market. You can also use tariffs to bring people to the negotiation table because it would be financially damaging for them to not engage with, like, the border issue, for example. We're giving them a financial incentive to force their hand. We have the ability to do that. We don't have to suffer with this open border forever. Mexico can help. We need them to step up and help. If they're not going to do that, we need to not be handing them access to our markets.
At
It's
what
really
point
that
will you
simple.
say it's a
You have to do
failure?
it intelligently. You keep saying, "Oh, well, then if you think it all the tariffs."
But at what point,
There's
real world
for
here,
tariffs in
at
different
what
places.
point would you
It's been
say
strategic? It's
that Trump
nuanced.
hasn't worked?
That's
that
why
it
you
hasn't
won't
worked?
understand it if you're just on Google right now.
Trump doesn't even know what a tariff is, so I don't know why you trust him to strategically implement it.
You said, is this your best argument?
I have not seen a single clip of Trump accurately describing what a tariff is. So
You didn't even know that American manufacturing has been hemorrhaged. You asked me
I
why it
do
was even
know
a bad
that.
thing. You have literally no spot at this table. Like, the fact that you're even in this, you're below this
you're
Discord
scared of me because
stream,
you don't
dude.
actually understand any economics. Is the issue.
Gibbs is the
I
most
can tell you
generous
why
man.
it's not necessarily good to bring American manufacturing back. I can also tell you manufacturing productivity has gone up a lot, so U.S. manufacturing output has actually increased, although manufacturing employment has decreased. There's an opportunity cost to everything. Everyone making a car is someone not making an iPhone. iPhones are generally more productive. Like the market accounts for this really well. The market makes sure that the factors of production flow to the most profitable use case. I don't see why the government should intervene on our liberty to import and make us all overall worse off and less productive. Like you have no good argument for that.
Just to play.
Yeah, get rid of every single regulation and law. I agree.
I think
Hold on, just because we're pointing to a specific law and say it's bad doesn't mean we want to get rid of all laws. Just because we're pointing to a specific regulation or a specific tool and saying it's bad doesn't mean we want to give away all our tools. What is this argument? This is ridiculous.
I know.
We are looking at tariffs specifically, and we were saying specifically, tariffs, when implemented, have a net harm and effect on our economy, and it's not worth it, even when they're used as a bargaining chip and a threat to try to get other countries to the bargaining table. It just does not work.
To quantify it, and the only way you're trying to is looking at the economic impact. So you're saying our argument is just tariffs are being used as a threat. You know where we got that from is the guy implementing the tariffs. We're using his actual words and his actual actions to construct our argument.
And I'm looking at the actual result of what he's done, and we're measuring it by the tool that
one at a time.
And this is the tool people care about. This is what the voter cares about. Can I afford that product? And if the answer is no, then they don't buy it.
I got it. Here, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah. So again, you can argue that tariffs don't have a net economic benefit. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. For the most part, he's not either. Neither is Trump. Trump was the only time he said it wasn't was when he would remove taxes and replace it with tariffs, which is a whole different subject, whole different argument. Theoretical, would be fun to talk about. We haven't even gotten there yet. Trump is saying he's using these tariffs as a negotiating tool to get other concessions out of the country. And I'm giving you examples where it has worked. And every time I have, all of them go unaddressed. Literally, the migrant protection protocols were put in place because of a threat, according to Trump.
According to Trump is the key word there. They were doing this anyway.
Dude, they were implemented.
They were not in favor of the migrant protection protocols.
Trump just hates the trade deficit.
Even if you don't believe it's why, it doesn't mean it wasn't. So we'll take the W on the issue anyway. But like, that is how these things work.
Hold on, calm down. God damn. All right, listen. Okay, what is the counter argument you want addressed before you turn into Bob?
The migrant protection.
I just said it. Tariffs are not used as economic policy. They're used to punish. They're used to negotiate, and they've worked. Migrant protection protocols worked. They were only in place because of the tariff threat.
All right, what is y'all's response to that? Let's start with
I just think that's bullshit because I don't think it was implemented because of the tariffs threat. I just don't think it was.
Then what do you think
Trump just hates the trade deficit. Trump has gone on record of not liking the trade deficit at all.
Trump said it. Trump said it. Yeah, I need more than that, buddy.
So what do you think motivated them then?
They said no, he said the tariff. They said yes. And then as soon as it was gone, as soon as the tariff was gone,
I had a show on Matt Gaetz on how he was a kid diddler, and then he dropped out. It must have been because of my show. Same logic.
Same as saying that
I did a thing. Saying wouldn't motivate government to must have been true, right? I was feeling sad, and then I looked out the window, and there was rain, and now I'm happy, and these are things that are connected.
So, all right, let's. We got some time. I'll be honest. Let's examine this thought exercise that was just presented here by Tyler. You can dive into this to start, Tyler, since that is something I did want to talk about. Texas has recently declared they're going to get rid of income tax by 2025. Trump, I guess, liked that idea, and he wants to get rid of income tax as well, and he's argued possibly doing it with tariffs. All right, Tyler, you want to talk about that? Let's. I know before pre-World War II, most countries gained most of their income from tariffs. What are your thoughts on this proposal? Even more tariffs, get rid of income tax. Would that be a good
Can
idea.
we all give our thoughts on this proposal?
Oh yeah, we're absolutely we're gonna go in
I
a
want
circle.
a turn.
No, Wick, no, no.
We'll go in a circle. I'll start with Tyler.
It could be super interesting. So what we'd see in this instance, what a tariff essentially does is it takes extra money from somebody that's buying a foreign good. So what we could see is a massive economic boom in our localized industry, a higher velocity of money in country. It could be good. I don't know. I took a couple economics classes in college and I kind of look into it for fun. I don't know enough about making these projections. What I would see is if we implemented these tariffs, we'd probably get retaliatory tariffs back from the country. That alone would cause the cost of our goods to drop just based on a higher supply and a lower set of demand. So it'd be interesting, man. I need somebody more equipped to run down the data with me, but I don't see any reason against it if they could find a sound plan for it, at least to try it. He won, so why not?
Well, let's go to Nonfon. We'll go opposite way last time.
Yeah, real quick. Trump hates a trade deficit. He's not just using this as a threat. He hates a trade deficit because he doesn't understand it. But also, like, I linked a tweet from him. But also, the income tax thing. Like, first of all, tariffs just can't raise as much revenue as income tax. The revenue maximizing point of tariffs is probably like 40%. That only raises like $500 billion. Income tax raises $2.2 trillion. Secondly, tariffs are a regressive tax. Income tax is a progressive tax. Tariffs tax poor people more, both because it's a flat tax, so it's a percentage of their income. Poor people are hurt more. And two, because poor people spend more of their income on imported goods than rich people do. Income tax, I think like the bottom 50% of Americans only pay like $600 in income tax. Like the bottom 50% barely pay income tax. They would pay tariffs.
All right, we'll go to Pentuple. We'll save Wick for last. Here you go, Pentuple.
I hate the income tax. I think it sucks. So I would do literally anything to get that trade chip on the table. It's like it's like Justin Jefferson. Any trade offer between us that gets me
AdmiralGibbs' dick.
No, that's
you
gross.
said anything, right?
I know I did, but like, come on, damn it.
I'm sorry. Like, your niece is here. Come on, this is not fair.
What? No. Look. I'm just saying, like, yeah, I would like to do that. The tariffs thing. I mean, we don't have to replace it with tariffs, but I'd be open to replacing it with anything else. But yeah, and
I do. Before we move to Wick here, I do find it interesting that with my reputation, he chose to bring his niece to my panel of all the panels to come to. The wildest of the panels. All right, and then Wick, go ahead and give us your thoughts.
Yeah. You like income tax, I get it, right? No one likes to pay their hard-earned money on stuff, right? It sucks. But just wait till you get a load of what tariffs used as a primary economic.
Do you think it's gonna be a third of my income?
Like, yeah. No shot. Like, you will be able to afford less.
Okay. Do you realize that even long-term tariffs implemented would be for American products to enter that market? Like, the tariffs are not always American-made goods won't be affected by this. Every single product is coming from overseas. And a lot of the competition in these industries has American-made products and foreign-made products. These tariffs aren't going to just be like, now you don't have the product. A lot of the times, people are just going to buy the American product now. Like, you're acting like we're just like, it's just never going to happen.
The American product would be more expensive because the resources they use to make that product would be more expensive.
Hold on,
because tariffs will make it more expensive
the American product
they use to make the product.
Why does a company not paying the tariff increase their price?
Well, because there's more demand for them domestically. The entire point of a tariff is to induce investment caused by the higher price that producers can now pay. Two, you're reducing price competition. Part of the reason prices in America are low is because they're competing against foreign competiters. If you get rid of that competition, they're paying.
And there are a lot of products that we can't.
In a lot of cases, there's already
right. You can't grow coffee in America. Right?
On the shelves already. Right, already. There's ready to go. This is what we're saying. There's already in nearly every we could list different types of goods, but what I'm saying is
the idea of removing income tax for all the reasons
and American-made goods already on the shelves. This is not every single analysis of this is going to be an input onto an industry. We have no domestic manufacturing.
You'll be able to afford less.
we're all going to have to suck and pay the prices of tariffs. The whole point is that no, we're
Yeah.
not. We're going to stop buying the Chinese goods and start buying the American ones to avoid the tariffs.
The American ones are going to be
No,
more
the
expensive.
American ones are going to be more expensive, and it's a higher opportunity cost.
Hold on, let me ask this.
That's the point. The Asian manufacturing in the country. You guys have no ability to zoom out and see this problem, and it's like no wonder you guys are no longer in charge. You're so confused. Why we would vote for a convicted felon over you
I'm
guys.
no longer in charge, motherfucker. I have people in my chat, right, who have dinner with Ivanka Trump. If you think I am someone who isn't in charge still, I am the deep state, okay? I am the one whispering in the ears to get things done. I am the one pulling the strings. So you can, sit down.
It's you.
Yeah,
It's been
I
you
mean,
this whole time.
True.
yeah, it's him, bro.
You're
I mean,
welcome, okay?
You. This
I am
entire
the
time.
CIA.
I'm a neoliberal.
I don't know what you just said, but are you the
I'm a
Riddler?
neoliberal. I like Dick Cheney and shit.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about all that.
Think
Yeah,
like
so I mean, let's come back to this point y'all were just debating, right? Because part of like one of the arguments that I've always heard made for tariffs is that you will increase manufacturing, right? There's been an argument. I saw Trump lay this out in his economic plan, right? He argued that hey, it's going to be an initial little bit painful, and then you're going to have the investment and the growth as the stuff is built here. It's a long, wonderful thing. You'll see immediate benefits from new jobs created, et cetera, et cetera. Are y'all saying, without a doubt, there's not going to be this sort of investment?
It hasn't happened in the past. I have no reason to believe it would happen now.
It depends on what you tariff, and it depends on the scope of
It's
them. I don't
never
think
happened in the past. It's never happened in the past.
Not in 90% of the cases, no.
Yeah, I don't think tariffing inputs and intermediate goods is going to bring manufacturing back. I also think tariffs discourage exports as much as they discourage imports, and that hurts manufacturing as well. I also think any manufacturing we do bring back is a net cost because the loss to consumers is greater than the gain to producers, and there's a super large opportunity cost. Pentuple's laughing because he doesn't have a very basic understanding of comparative advantage. Oh, he's deaf and he's not even listening. He doesn't have an understanding of comparative advantage. So
I just say tariffing
Does he have a
100%.
stranger in his room too? Oh no, it looks like you're in his room.
Tariffing 100% of a company that moves their jobs to Mexico. Sure, they might have to downsize if they stay in the United States. We might lose some jobs, but overall, that's saving jobs and not letting them go to Mexico.
Nope.
I would argue it is absolutely. So they're going to just close the company. They were about to just build a whole
not
new
required.
plant in Mexico.
no,
Yeah, a
but
lot of times they do.
resources that otherwise would have been devoted to doing other things to produce other jobs are now being devoted to produce this thing.
Mexico didn't want to do migrant protection protocols. Trump threatens a tariff. They suddenly do want to do migrant protection protocols, and it's all a big coincidence because Rick thinks Trump is a liar.
I mean, in that case, like, I'm fine with saying tariffs worked as a threat there. I also think Trump just wants to do tariffs because he doesn't like the trade deficit, as he said multiple times, and because he wants to bring manufacturing back, as he said multiple times as well.
Okay, but he also said multiple times that he's doing it for specific purposes. For Mexico, is specifically.
Let me just ask hold on. Let me ask Tyler a question directly.
And then I want to
Do you think that tariffs bring back manufacturing jobs? Generally.
No, in that circumstance that I offered.
No,
I would
Trump
say that
says that they
absolutely.
do. Okay,
They will.
so you
I
are
think they will.
saying clearly, to be
I think they
clear,
will.
that Trump is wrong when he says that they bring back manufacturing jobs.
No,
I mean,
now,
hold on. Just to jump in here because you boys are failing the righties here. There are examples historically of tariffs
Name one.
in 1860.
I don't just pull shit out of my ass and
1860
Google
tariff.
midstream.
Okay, fair enough. In 1860,
Hey,
perhaps.
that's the
I'll
one that
give it
came
to you.
and in
I'll
fact,
give it-
it's also to
fair
Tyler's
enough.
point.
Point
it hurt
to
slavery.
Gibbs in the 1800s. This might have worked.
It's so dumb because I don't dispute that they can be used to protect certain jobs,
Oh
but
my
all the
God.
jobs that they do protect are wasteful because you're using domestic resources to produce something that previously could have been imported cheaper. Well, the domestic resources you were using were doing other things, making actual, better, more productive jobs.
So all right. So this brings me to the question I wanted to bring up. Right. So do y'all agree that we're in a trade war with some of these countries like BRICS? Do y'all think that we are in what we'd call a trade war?
Yeah,
I
I
would
think
say
we have engaged in. I don't know if we're. Yeah, we have engaged in trade wars with these countries. Yes, that's.
We're doing tit for tats. I don't think they're technically considered trade wars yet, but I am not the one that makes those definitions. But I
Okay,
just
whatever you
Would you
call it.
sure? Would you say they're anti? All right. Let's broaden
Trade
it a little bit.
special military operations.
Yeah,
Okay?
sure. Yeah, exactly. I think we're getting lost in the weeds here. Would y'all say these are countries that are like antagonistic towards us and they use economic policies such as tariffs against us? Would y'all say that that's a true statement?
I think that a lot of times they try to bait
sometimes.
us into using tariffs against ourselves, right? But yeah, no, yes, I guess conceptually you are correct that they try to use trade policies in order to benefit them and hurt others.
So so this needs to be, it's a two-part question here. So recently there was a report put out by the Pentagon saying that one of the biggest issues the United States is going to have if we were to go to war with China is we have a lack of shipbuilding, and that's due to a lack of domestic manufacturing. Could you see how maybe a tariff would hurt the United States in like an economic sense, like short term with the money, but it would help us in building our like maybe say our military manufacturing in a way like so we get a win basically in defensively as opposed to.
But
do you agree with that assessment?
Only if manufacturing was actually buoyed up by these. But again, we can look at the data here. Tariffs don't generally lead to that. They don't generally lead to a boost.
Well, tariffs don't, but an increase in demand for American-made products does. And you guys are just like, you guys just imagine that market forces disappear. If you have these tariffs, even if the American manufacturing doesn't exist, or they transition over from some other product, like Nonfon said, these are just market forces at work.
Hold on. I don't know what you think I'm disputing, Pentuple. You're not acknowledging that these jobs are wasteful. And also,
You're saying
I
some
wanna
weird
answer,
shit
I
like
do agree.
they'd be more valuable producing some other good. The whole point is increasing the
opportunity
demand
cost.
for the American-made product to
Correct.
compete in the market against foreign-made products who can undercut us because of the labor cost.
So
And for other reasons.
There's an
hold on,
opportunity
hold on,
cost to that.
hold on. Let me
That's the
ask
whole
you-
point.
Let me
What the
rephrase it.
opportunity, dude? You just say random fucking words.
You don't know what opportunity cost is.
Pointless
Those
member of
resources
this
could have
entire
otherwise been
panel.
done
I don't think
things.
you will ever say anything interesting
I'm
to me.
gonna pause there.
Pentuple
I
only
wish
thinks
all
'cause
of
he's
your
scared
time
and doesn't
was
know
given to
basic
Wick.
economics. That's
Hold
what's
on,
happening.
Genuinely wish Wick had all of your time. I
I'm
feel
gonna
like
mute people.
Gibbs is
I'm gonna
being
mute
way
people.
too generous.
So hold on. Let me reframe this again because we got I don't know what that was, but we can come back to it. I have a question, right? Who here is in favor of the like CHIPS Act or basically producing more chips here in the United States? Everybody here likes that,
Yeah.
right? In general, okay. So this is a case to me where I feel like, say we put a tariff on, I don't know, Chinese semiconductors and Chinese chips, which would produce more manufacturing in the United States. Would that not be a good thing then, Nonfon? I feel like because you're the one who's been arguing, hey, we could buy it cheaper from China possibly, and we can focus our industry somewhere else. Do you see how this could be a danger to the United States if, say, hey, we don't have any chip manufacturing because we've been buying it cheaper from Taiwan and Taiwan gets conquered or something? Like, what do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a few cases where the national security concern overcomes the economic cost with semiconductors and with batteries. I think we should both tariff those from China like a lot. I will say I don't think tariffs are particularly effective again because they hurt exports too. They hurt manufacturing in certain ways depending on the scope of them and depending on what you tariff exactly. I also think a lot of times tax credits are better. That's what the CHIPS Act had, tax incentive financing. It gave tax credits. That way you incentivize companies to actually produce here rather than just produce somewhere else. Because if you just tariff China, then they just move to Japan, which can be good sometimes.
That being said, when you do things like the CHIPS Act, you're picking winners and losers. What we saw with Solyndra is a lot of times it's not good economically to dump a ton of money into a company that wasn't going to make it on its own. A lot of these companies fail. So I would say the CHIPS Act's not good for the economy, so ignore everything else and get rid of it, right?
That's not my position. My position is that certain things that are bad for the economy can still be net benefits. I think tariffs are bad for the economy and don't have any other benefits to counteract that. And also, I agree. This does choose winners and losers, just like free trade has winners and losers.
For enough people, it would outweigh the costs, right? But they don't.
The steel industry is my go-to example. During NAFTA, we had China, who not only is outbidding us on levels of what they can pay their rates for their employees because they don't have human rights and treat their people like shit, but also they can artificially inflate and deflate their currency. They can stockpile goods using taxpayer money to pay the companies back, stockpile the goods, and then flood the market with extremely cheap steel. So when they were flooding the U.S. markets with extremely cheap steel, what happened to U.S. manufacturing? It plummeted. These tariffs against China and against Mexico and Canada to stop Chinese steel from coming to the United States potentially could have saved steel manufacturing in the United States. I can show you the data on it right now. I have it pulled up in front of me.
Okay, so I mean, one, I think the dumping with China could happen for some things, but steel is a very high fixed cost industry, so it makes sense sometimes to sell below your fixed cost if you can cover your variable cost. But also, I think all these things are a net benefit to the U.S. If China has lower labor regulations and they can produce stuff, that's high labor intensity more efficiently than the U.S. can because of that, then that's a net benefit for the U.S. to specialize in things that are, like iPhones, and for China to specialize in actually the final assembly to iPhones because that's very labor intensive. No, it's not, because I don't think slavery is a net benefit.
They don't have human rights, so let's use them and let people die. I'm a left winger. That's against my moral code. Sorry.
I mean, again, the only thing worse than being exploited by capitalism is not being exploited by capitalism. By tariffing them, you're removing the best option that they have. And then two, I don't think slavery is free exchange. You're literally owning someone. That this is free exchange for the most part. Obviously, China has restrictions on their end that make it a little less free exchange. But
or we don't give them jobs, and they say our economic conditions suck. Let's overthrow this country, as opposed to, well, they're giving us jobs, so something must be working. I guess it's all right.
I mean, I think that's a very risky bet to take, but okay, dude.
That's what economic sanctions are for. Literally, the point of economic sanctions is to cause an economic turmoil so the populace uprising against them.
That's the point of some of them, but with Russia, we also sanction their oligarchs, so their oligarchs in theory can have say over Putin.
You're right. I did oversell sanctions to what purpose? You're fair. That's fair.
Yeah, and
what was the question? Sorry.
Oh, don't worry about it. You look like you had something ready there. Go ahead.
No, here's the deal, right? The CHIPS Act specifically, we recognize that we weren't producing a thing that we needed desperately to produce domestically because of security concerns, and so we invested directly in the infrastructure and the industrial capacity to do that, right? By providing tax subsidies and other methods to do that, right? That's the way to go about it. When we have a product or a resource that we don't have domestically, but we want to produce domestically, there are ways to do that, and I'm not against those ways in a lot of cases. When we're talking about specifically tariffs, again, for all the reasons we've been over and over and over and over, it's just not the way. It's just not helpful.
All right,
there are other ways to do the same thing that don't have the negatives that tariffs do.
I'd argue they don't have the same strengths either.
Okay, so let me ask this. So y'all mentioned sanctions. What other tools y'all have that y'all have in y'all playbooks? Okay, well, so I guess that's not where I was going with
incentives.
Hold on with the tax incentives. That's not
I'll
what
give you an example. If you want more American jobs, give companies a tax break for hiring American workers.
We already do that.
Yes, tax incentives stop China.
Do it more. Do it to the max.
Sure.
How do tax incentives stop China from dumping?
I'm not against it. Look, I agree. And look, I'll just make the point. I think for the pro-tariff side on this, we're open. Look, this isn't a passionate pillar of a political belief. We're open-minded to different approaches and different ideas. But I think what we need to acknowledge is that manufacturing in our country is being shipped overseas. We need to create that demand for the manufacturing here again. And we think tariffs is a way to do it. That's what we're going to do because we won the election. Election does have consequences, so we will be doing it, and we'll get to see if your prediction comes true. But ultimately, it's not that we are gonna die on this hill if you are correct. If we learn and things change, we'll adjust the approach, and I will accordingly. But you haven't presented your better idea yet.
Pentuple, your mind can't
be
open.
You haven't presented your better idea yet.
No, hold on. Just a moment, because I want to introduce this, right? I want not introduce, but I want to kind of put a pin in this, right? Because I honestly don't think you will. I think what you will do is you will try to spin whatever happens as a political win for Trump.
Well, if we get manufacturing jobs in the U.S. go up, I will consider it a success. I think that is. This is interesting. I think that we should establish on this panel what all of us would agree is a measure of success for tariffs. In one of the cases, which is Chinese manufacturing, these tariffs are designed to help improve the demand for American manufactured products. That's how I'm going to judge it. So we do have I think we can come up with some sort of objective measure by how we're going to measure the success of this tariffs, whether it's used as a threat, whether it's used to collect revenue, whether it's used to open up the market, however it's implemented.
Man.
That's the judge. That's what I'm saying.
Let's say we get 500,000 new manufacturing jobs in the U.S.
Hell yeah. Right?
But we're paying double for the car, or not even double. We're paying
double. I don't know if it'll be double, but I will. Yeah, I would happily pay more if it means that. Yeah. Oh yeah. The price going up is not an immediate loss.
We don't need
No, because the
jobs.
market forces are still in play, is what I'm saying. The market forces are still in play. I'm not going to pay too much.
Wait,
If the prices
Pentuple,
domestically don't work, then people aren't going to buy it. They're still going to have to compete in the market. That's why I say you guys are acting like the market forces disappear when these things happen.
I'm not acting like
the
that.
market forces don't disappear. What I'm saying is that they will work.
You literally do not understand enough to know why that's not the case. Can you define opportunity cost? Do you know what that is? Do you have a concept of what that is? Can you, or do you not know?
His point is somewhat solid if you're talking
Wait, no,
about...
let him escape. No. Can you, Pentuple, please? I need to know. Can you define opportunity cost? Oh, he's deafened.
He's talking to his street. He does have a point. If you're talking about elastic products in the market, we have all sorts of competition. We have knockoff brands. We have all sorts of things. He does have a point. Now, if you're talking about inelastic products, then your point rings true. So, but he is onto something here. This is probably one of his first better points.
Again, I don't dispute that this can be used to bring...
Hold on a second. Nonfon wants you to explain opportunity cost, Pentuple.
Well, why am I explaining opportunity? He's the one who's been repeating it all night. Why doesn't he tell me?
I can tell you what it is. It's a cost.
Please do. You're the one saying it all night as if it's just a slam dunk. I don't know what you're talking about. Please.
Yeah,
explain.
because most people have a concept of what it is.
No,
It's the cost
you
of
don't
the.
understand.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I know what generally opportunity cost means. You're just explain. What is this like? Get off your fucking horse. Wait, don't do this. You know better than to act like that. Opportunity cost, don't you know? No, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I know what the words mean. Like, what are you trying to do right now? This is the worst performance from the left wing I've ever seen, and it is in part why you guys lost the election so badly. You guys didn't even think it was fathomable we'd win the popular vote, but then you make arguments so bad like this.
Yeah, great.
You don't know what I mean by opportunity cost. Of course, tariffs won't work.
So, okay, Pentuple, do you acknowledge that the resources being used to promote American manufacturing could have otherwise been used to do other things, right? You acknowledge that, right? Or do you not know what that means? Do I need to break it down?
Please tell me what opportunity cost means and what you mean by that and why you just say it.
It's the cost of the next best alternatives for your resources. So every factor, production, land, labor, capital, ideas that goes to American manufacturing, however you define that, is land, labor, capital ideas that didn't go to something else, like research and development.
This argument doesn't make sense because we're hemorrhaging manufacturing jobs. We don't have no issue where manufacturing jobs aren't leaving. Manufacturing jobs are leaving the America. They're leaving America. So we don't have this is like an equilibrium on manufacturing jobs where it's like all the manufacturing potential has been reached. That is what you're arguing.
No.
What are we doing?
I agree we're losing manufacturing jobs. I think that's a great thing because it means
Do you? Because I don't think you knew that until you Googled it 20 minutes ago.
That's not true at all. I don't dispute this at all. And I agree tariffs can be used sometimes to bring certain manufacturing jobs back. I just think that, again, that's wasteful because
that's what we've been arguing this whole time.
All right. Let's reframe. I think that we did touch on something I've been trying to kind of get around, and nobody's been really biting. Let's go back to how do we define a win on tariffs? Wick said here basically he thinks that Pentuple and probably most righties are going to just spin whatever Trump does as a win. Like
I propose an objective measure.
Yeah,
the objective measure being manufacturing jobs.
I think that's
the whole point. We can measure those. We do measure those. That's how we know they're leaving.
Well, hold on. Let me just finish this here because I know that Nonfon here is not going to pick that. And like you're arguing manufacturing, I would personally I'll jump in here for a second. I personally would define the threat of the tariff getting something done like as a win. Like for example, if Trump came in and was like, hey, I got them basically to squash migration at the southern Mexican border for 25%, like with the threat of 25% tariffs, he didn't have to implement them. I would call that a win, right? Or if he, other things like say he implemented a tariff on China and we can't use Chinese, steel, and it forced us to start Chinese shipbuilding and we had to build ships here or something. I don't know. I can see specific scenarios where like the national security y'all granted me counts as a win, or the immigration issue counts as a win. But it doesn't seem to me that like y'all or the left is wanting to grant the majority of those. How are y'all willing to define these as a win? We can start with Pentuple since you seem to have the manufacturing jobs started.
Yeah, I think that we can judge this based on whether manufacturing jobs start returning to the U.S., whether we can effectively increase the demand for American-made products that's are currently being manufactured, some that aren't being manufactured right now. Like I said, this is very nuanced. It has to be strategically and intelligently. Some products that we shouldn't tariff because we need them. Like all of these immediate questions that you have when we talk about it are going to be addressed. Like that's We're going to be paying people in our government a lot of money to figure out and sort through those nuanced things. So what we're really talking about is whether the tariff approach will work. I think the tariff approach will work. I think it'll be effective at bringing back manufacturing jobs. I think it'll be effective at getting Mexico to work with us on the border. I think that they're an effective tool for any president to use in foreign policy. I think it's just like, it's kind of, I don't know, it's surprising we're arguing it. I think it's because you guys hate Trump so much, but that's just how I feel about it. It's just like, tariffs work, we should use them, and like we have to use them intelligently. We can't just throw a dart at the board and say 10% tariff to this product. It's got to be done right.
I've given you examples.
I know you can give me examples because you're Googling it in real time.
That I've been against, such as the one from Obama in 2012. I've given you examples of other Republican president tariffs that I don't like, such as the 2002 tariff by Bush, right? So to explain this, because
that's what I'm saying. You could convince me on all of these. You could convince me on all of those points, but that doesn't mean that tariffs are bad. And Trump is a bit of a departure from previous administrations. Would you admit that there's like a little bit of a shakeup happening when Trump enters the White House than when the previous 5 administrations have?
This is true. But Trump,
yeah, he does things a lot differently. I think Trump threatening tariff. I think there's a difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden threatening a 25% tariff. I think the threat coming from Trump is more seriously taken than maybe it would be by Joe Biden. So like there's a lot of factors that are okay. Different presidents have different levels of credibility. I mean, you guys can make the argument that Donald Trump doesn't carry any credibility worldwide. I'm just saying there's so many variables that when you're trying to convince me that tariffs just don't work, we shouldn't use them as a tool. These aren't good arguments to make for why they don't work, because you found one time we implemented a tariff that doesn't work. Even if this other president did the same approach, it doesn't give, and it's not a given that it's going to have the exact same outcome. Things have changed in the last 20 years. Things have changed in the last 4 years. Things have changed in the last 3 weeks for you guys.
They were the bad commies. We will implement communism in a way that will feed the people.
In a way, yeah. I mean, it sounds ridiculous when you put it that way, but in a way, yeah, this is a tool. I think that Trump's going to use these tools better than the administrations of the past. That's the whole reason I support him, is because he's a departure from the status quo of government. So, like, in a way, yes, it sounds ridiculous when you put it that way, but yeah, I do think that Trump is going to be able to use these tools in a different way than George W. Bush did and that Joe Biden has. Or that Kamala would have. I don't know, like, what the point is. Yes.
I don't have an issue 100%. With saying that insofar as tariffs can be used to achieve a goal that I think is good, then that's a good thing. But you don't know enough about the economic cost of tariffs to say that. You don't understand enough about the tool itself to know why it's good or bad. Like,
dude. Why do you pull this card? It's like the most disgraceful. Look at the laugh.
Because I know you don't know anything about this, so I can own you easily on it. That's the answer.
You have not owned anything. You asked me if American manufacturing was declining because you hadn't Googled it yet for the debate. Like
That's not true.
I can't even imagine me putting you on a panel. This is insane.
Do you think I don't know?
It's honestly embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You literally said for one of your arguments that Donald Trump doesn't know what tariffs are. How am I supposed to take you seriously? How am I supposed to care about anything you have to say when you make such stupid claims?
Is there a single clip of Donald Trump accurately describing what a tariff is? I am not found one.
Donald Trump knows what a tariff is. This is the hubris of like a 16-year-old fucking child. It's embarrassing.
Hold on. I'm gonna give you. Hold on. Pause.
Oh my God! I just realized why you're so dumb.
Pause. And then we're gonna get some order here. Just a show of hands. Quick show of hands. Who here thinks that Donald Trump knows what a tariff is? Just.
I think he knows, but he's lying about it.
Dude, just take the L on the debate if you have to resort to saying that the president of the United States doesn't know what a tariff is. Just take the L, dude.
Is there a single clip of him accurately describing what a tariff is?
Is there a single clip? Dude, yeah, because you're... Dude, I can't stop with the fucking voice.
To be clear, I think Trump...
Go on Google. You love Google. Yes, I've seen Trump talk about tariffs. Yes, I've seen him discuss tariffs. Go on Google. What is this? You have the hubris of a child. It is so fucking goofy. Oh my God.
I got it.
Just stop for a moment. Here's the thing. If Trump believes that tariffs will have a net positive impact on bringing manufacturing jobs back to America, then no, he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to tariffs.
What about hold on?
How does it not bring jobs back when you create a marketplace where those goods cost more than the American-made goods? Now you have a market demand for the American-made goods.
Pentuple, can I run through an example of you real quick, please?
Stop.
I'm genuinely no interest in anything you say, but
you gotta be less data.
I gotta mute it. I got it muted. I'm gonna get my question in. Wick. So, all right, you said if you think it's because of manufacturing, do you think it's because? Do you think would you grant him the like the Mexico situation if he uses? Do you think he understands what a tariff is if he's like, hey, I'm going to use it to stop him from, I don't know, letting migrants cross their southern border?
I think if he's using it as a threat and it works, then fair enough. But I think there are better ways to accomplish the same goal, and I don't believe it worked in the.
Hold on, we're gonna go to Tyler next.
Propose one.
I want to go to Tyler. Tyler, go ahead. All right,
The same question. Absolutely. Well, that's my whole argument is that these aren't being used as an economic tool generally to make the economy better, and they're not being proposed as that either. I'd like to go back to a question you asked Wick earlier. What policies would you put in place specifically to stop the flood of cheap Chinese steel coming in from Mexico and Canada?
I'm not an economist. I would hire economists to do that for me.
I don't have an issue with that. I think that's based.
No, you know, Google search.
I agree. You can defer to
I would hire an economist to do that for me. I don't think I'm qualified.
Would you hire the same economists who have been overseeing this for the last 20 years?
Do you think economists have been overseeing the tariffs for the last 20 years?
No, I'm just saying that they all the people that are making the arguments you have been referencing these fucking experts. So yeah, I want to know what's the deal. What's their track record?
You can look it up. But
on comparative advantage,
I'm sure Nonfon's got it up already.
Yeah, I mean, we have empirical studies on comparative advantage. If you want to run through them, I understand you probably.
Let me ask this question.
Empirical studies. I sound smart because I said empirical studies.
Okay. So anyway, I don't know how to go with that, but I think that Pentuple does touch on a good point, which is that the Trump team is supposed to be like outsiders, right? And economists seem to have kind of put from many of the MAGA people's perspective, have put the United States economy in the shitter, right? I mean, how long have we heard this policy from the Dems is going to do this and whatever? So I see this as an outsider. How do you use this argument? Like, how do you justify which economists we're listening to? How do you argue like that? You know what I'm saying? I think that's kind of what he's getting at with that question.
That the idea that a lot of people believe the economists have failed us and put in this situation, is that what you're trying to?
Yeah, because I feel like they're looking for outside solutions.
Well, this is like an institutional discussion, institutional problem, and I think that the reason that people believe tariffs work is a far different question. Because I think you're right when you say that people believe tariffs will do a thing or X thing. And that's true amongst a large portion of the populace. A large portion of the populace believes tariffs will have a benefit to manufacturing in America. But here's the thing. The data shows that that's not the case, and that's not true. Now, I think a lot of institutions, not just economists, but science, academia, etc., have shot themselves in the foot by lying to the American public, and that's an own goal that they have to deal with. They have to re-win the trust. But on tariffs specifically, this is something from left, right, and center, from economist hobbyists to economist PhDs, across the board, say that while in certain specific instances targeted tariffs might work, blanket tariffs like the ones proposed by Trump simply won't.
All right, thoughts? Right. Yeah, thoughts on this?
There's more consensus on free trade with economists than like any other subject. It's also hilarious to me Pentuple's making fun of experts and he can't even define opportunity cost. He doesn't know what the balance of payments is.
I'm asking you to define it for the purposes of what you're using it for. I know what opportunity cost means, but you can't just say opportunity. Oh my god, you can't just say opportunity cost and then just pretend like I'm a retard because I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yeah, you do have to actually explain the terms you're using them in the context that you're using them. Opportunity cost. Are you kidding me, dude? This is such a.
I mean,
this is really the debate.
This is your approach to the debate. Just Trump doesn't know what a tariff resources.
Opportunity cost. Net negative. You know what net negative means? Do you even know can you describe what net negative means?
Well, hold on. If we have to, I got a Black's Law dictionary behind me. We can start looking up the legal terms. But thankfully, we only got 5 minutes here. So here's what we're gonna do for this last closing 5. What we're gonna do, I want to hear y'all's closing arguments. Who started this? Let's start with. Let's go with Tyler. You can start us off again here.
All right, well, there was a bit of a disconnect between me and my debate partner here. I did not argue the economic benefit of tariffs. I completely conceded that one up front. And I don't think they're being used other than the theory crafting of getting rid of taxes and going back to an older system. I don't think they're being used for economic benefit. We know what they're being used for. We were told there's a better way to do it. We just, when asked for a single example, none were provided. I would say that tariffs are a lighter version of what sanctions do. And we implement sanctions all the time without regarding any sort of effects on it. So I would say that the bad actors that we put these tariffs on, or at least the threats of them, were doing things that everyone agrees were bad. And even if you don't agree, if you think Mexico just disagreed with this tariff and disagreed with stay in Mexico, and then one day changed their mind, and then just one day changed it back, and it's all a big coincidence, I guess I can't really fault you for that. But the facts look like it was Trump's tariffs that did it. So I'm going to go with Trump is using his tariffs effectively, and they are benefiting the American worker. And in a lot of ways, they look more like something John Fetterman or Bernie Sanders would do. So as somebody of the left, I generally like them.
All right. Let's go to Nonfon. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think anyone provided any good arguments for tariffs being net benefits. I mean, I agree insofar as tariffs aren't actually implemented and just can be used as a threat to achieve an outcome. I think it's good. They can be good. I think Trump just hates the trade deficit, though. There's not a single clip of Trump accurately describing what a tariff is. Also, the economists around Trump think that imports subtract from GDP. That is not true. So I do not trust him to import or to implement them strategically. The Pentuple does not know enough about economics to actually engage in this conversation. That's why he's scared. He is scared of a 19-year-old online suitor expert who has never had a girlfriend. That is who he's running from. Okay. I'll end by citing the conclusion of that IMF study that I have cited before. 151 countries from 1963 to 2014. We find that tariff increases led to economically and statistically significant declines in domestic output and productivity. Tariff increases also resulted in more unemployment, higher inequality, and real exchange rate appreciation, but only small effects on trade balances. We have empirical studies. We have the models to back it up. They don't have anything.
All right. I'll let Pentuple go next and respond to that.
Get tariffed, nerds. We won. Suck it up. We're going to win. We're going to get manufacturing back, and you're just going to have to watch and learn, I guess. So spurg out on Google. Have fun.
All right. Wick, go ahead.
Sure. I guess to quickly respond to that, the democracy is the idea that the people know what they want, and they deserve to get it good and hard, and we will get it good and hard.
Good and hard, baby. That's right.
It won't. I don't know if Trump will actually implement the thing he does, the things he said. We'll have to see whether or not he actually implements the tariffs, the 25% tariffs on Canada, and just blanket tariffs across the board on goods from Mexico. I don't know if he will, but my argument here is if he does, it will be devastating to our economy. Not just theirs. It might hurt theirs too, but we will lose jobs overall. It will be a net cost to us overall. The economic benefits it will receive will pale in comparison. Tariffs breed a culture of corruption. If you want to drain the swamp, tariffs are not the way to do that. Tariffs encourage lobbyists who lobby the government and pay money for exemptions for their companies so that they can outcompete their competitors.
Well, those are bad.
Yeah, those are very bad, right?
Those are bad.
If I could finish my closing thoughts.
Sorry.
Right? Uninterrupted, if I may, right? So here's the deal at the end of the day. We have a wealth of data to show that free trade has brought our country and the world out of poverty, right? We did used to rely on tariffs and other import taxes and other such
Thank you very much, Ticky Tack, for the $20.
The world for hundreds of years.
I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
In the history of the world, have we had a higher standard of living across the board than we do today? And that is in large part because of our transition to free trade, the World Trade Organization, and global interconnectivity. And I just don't want to see us slip back or fall back. Tariffs bad, free trade good. WhickTV is where you can find me, and I won't charge you anything for being here, but if you've enjoyed the show, hit the like button and subscribe button. I love you all. Gibbs, thank you for hosting. That's my thing.
No problem. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was going to let you give outros. I was going to let you give outros after that, but you also... It looks like there's a couple people that want to get in on this as an open. I'm going to respect all y'all's time. Then you'll have to stay. But since Wick gave the outro, let's give everybody else outros. We'll go backwards with the order here. Pentuple, if you want to give an outro. And then we'll
Pentuple TV on Twitch and YouTube. And that's the... I don't have a tagline. I was going to make one up, but I don't have one. I'll see you there.
Fantastic. Nonfon.
I stream on YouTube at Nonfon, Nonfon, and Twitch at Nonfon420. You can go to my YouTube and watch me debate a bunch of other people about tariffs.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tyler.
My name's the Omni Liberal on Twitter. You can check me out at destiny.gg if you'd like. And otherwise, it was fun. I always have fun with it.
What's up?
What is up? What is up? The sky is up, right?
For real.
That's right. No, I mean, good debate. I listened to the last like 30 minutes or whatnot, but God,
Yeah.
the Pentuple guy is like so ignorant.
God, I tweeted him again. I know, yeah, he won't engage with a single thing I say because he's scared of me. He's scared of me. Everyone tweet this clip at him. He
Yeah,
is scared of me.
It's like, what do you say when you're dumb? It's like, oh, you big words. I'm so smart. Like, no, people say stuff and mean stuff.
It wasn't
Maybe
even
that's not
like
the case.
that big of words, and like everything. Like he asked me to define opportunity cost. I did. Like I was like, there were multiple points where I was like, do you need me to break it down more? Like I can tell you exactly what like real consumption possibilities mean. Like it's but he doesn't.
Yeah, very silly. But yeah, I mean, I feel like with people like that, they have no data because they cannot get data. I feel like you should just, I don't know, it sounds ridiculous, but
Damn, who are you? What do you want to talk
The
about?
best strategy is just being like, and again, the data says this, I'll read it again, reduce employment, reduce growth, reduce productivity. They have nothing to counter this. This is a very good study, and it says exactly what I'm saying.
I think it went decent Econoboi. Some of them wouldn't engage with me because they're scared. You can join the VC, by the way. Just remember, you have perms if you want to.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's strong. The other guy, what's his name? AverageDebateEnjoyer? Is that the guy?
AverageDebateEnjoyer, yeah.
Yeah,
I did eventually ask him the question, do you think labor standards improved because of the tariffs? And he said
yeah,
no. And I was like, okay, well then like.
Many people should highlight the contradiction.
Thanks for the follow, Coolio Fun.
My God. Did you watch the debate?
Econoboi.
I didn't. I only watched a
Right. No, I'm just talking about how to talk to there are like a couple branches of Trumpists because Trump is so vague, like basically inject whatever meaning you want into what he's saying. Like one guy can say, "Oh, Trump is actually agrees that tariffs are bad economically. He just wants to do them as like a negotiating
As a threat,
tool."
yeah.
The other guy would be like, "Actually, tariffs are awesome, and Trump agrees, and he wants to do them to improve manufacturing." It's like you need to debate both of these people at the same time, contradict each other. And then, so I feel like with the people who are like, it's a negotiating tool that he does because he's like playing 4D chess, or that you see Mexico caved immediately. It's like, you should ask these people, like, one, why did he implement tariffs that he never revoked then, if it's a negotiating tool? Seems like he's actually serious about that. Second, why did these tariffs work at all? I mean, China didn't put their labor like regulations, and you hit on that. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
And like, yeah,
They also didn't. They didn't reply to my points. I said like Trump doesn't know what a tariff is, and they just wouldn't engage with that. They wouldn't engage with that at all. And then I said like there was something else I said they never engaged with. I forget, but yeah, they would not engage with that.
What do you think about the argument that like, look, free trade is awesome, but it moves voters to the right? What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't think it's. I don't know. I don't think so. I think that, every country's had to deal with globalization and the pressures thereof, but I think that we haven't really seen sort of right-wing festering in a lot of different countries that have experienced this. Like, if I think of, the European countries, it seems like their right-wing sort of upswell wasn't really as a result of free trade, but more so the free movement of people. And so I don't think that really applies to the U.S. Particularly. So it's really just about setting up your economic institutions in such a way that people can sort of more directly feel the benefits of trade and globalization. Because just making an argument and being like, well, actually, over the course of the last 25 years, this bread that you're buying would have been an extra $1 more expensive per loaf if it wouldn't been for free trade. It's like, well, that's not a very
But as far as I know, we have studies on like the effects of like there are I can post one in the side chat here. It's like they show that like free trade like NAFTA has moved people to the right, like the counties or areas that got hit harder.
Well, but it's just a dumb argument. It's like, okay, so how far down does this argument go? It's like, well, free trade is bad because it hurts, domestic manufacturers. It's like, well, Okay, yeah, but why is that? Well, that's because we live in a market capitalist system. Like, are markets bad for the same reason? Like, the
No,
only
I
reason
agree.
that
It's
that
good. No, no, well, actually, it's good that it hurts manufacturing. That's the real red pill.
No, but that's
I
what I'm
know,
saying.
yeah.
It's like you could
I said that, and
ultimately
he just
reduce
laughed. He
this-
didn't engage.
You could ultimately reduce this criticism down to like, well, should we just like get rid of capitalism and markets then? Like, what the fuck are you talking
Well, no,
about?
I'm-
Like,
If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.